Welcome back, guys. This is 2019 LOL Champions Korea Spring Split. And this is the preview analyst stats joined by Mina Kim and Bitdory and Madlight. And this is season 4, the whole show translation. So it is already the end of the first round robin. Feels like it just started like not long a while ago, but it's already the end of the first round. There were a lot of teams and a lot of teams competing for the higher ranks. So I think it's really important for the players and teams to perform very well starting for the second round. All the players must want to win a lot. I mean, if you lose a lot, you actually become a joker on the stage. So I think all the players have to kind of feel better and be more confident facing up the new start of the week. How do you guys think our teamwork as an analyst here? I think all the fans might know. Maybe we're doing well. I think we're doing fairly well. So let's start off with the issues of last week. So first of all, the no farm strategy started as a frostfang strategy. It actually had a very diverse forms and styles. Especially Kingzone kind of pulled that off really well. We have observed very different types of frostmancies and also some counter plays against it. So this is Faker's Zoe actually somehow counterplaying it by invading their jungle a lot. So since the hotfix patch, it is no longer available, but I think there are still more experiments going on. And the second issue is Silence. So we're not really sure whether it is really a nice pick or a trap card. Well, since it's a new champion, it has a very low win rates in the competitive games, but still a lot of teams are kind of preferring it a lot and taking with maybe a first pick or even a blind pick. And number 3, it's Yorick, back in 2028 days. So the last time it appeared on LCK was 2013. Even Madlife doesn't remember that. Issue number 4 is Sangyun's 1,000 kill at LCK. Sangyun's dad actually gave in $10K US to celebrate this. And also Sangyun bought his whole team beef, which costed around $2,000 US. A lot of money was going back and forth over there. And lastly, Griffin having their 8-win streak currently, and their last match for the first round is coming up, so we have to find out whether they can make it a perfect first round of Spring Split. We have to call them a monster in LCK, and they are always on the top rankings of the power ranks. And we had a lot of solo interview with Chovy recently. We have to find out if they can make a perfect first round later today with the first match of today. It's Griffin versus Genji. Chovy is also in the first place for the MVP. So let's check out some rankings over here. This is the standings of all teams. Griffin on the first place and followed by Sandbox and SK Telecom. And the interesting point is that Diamond Game and Kingzone, those are actually both on 4 wins and 4 losses. So I think every match is so important and every single set is so important right now to stack up their points. And also KT, Genji, and Africa, they are also in the same records right now, 2 wins and 6 losses. But I mean, it is not a very decent looking record, but they still got second round, so we'll be looking forward to them performing better. And here comes the MVP standings. Chovy apparently on the first place. He stacked up 400 points last week, being the solo MVP for 2 match days. Even after Akali disappeared, he has been showing great performance on Zoe. I mean, Zoe doesn't really seem like an OP, but Chovy is pulling off a creative performance, making Zoe look like a perfect champion. And Chovy is followed by Ghost, Play, Deft, and Roller. And these are the KD rankings of each lane. Sword is the leader here, 6.1. So I think everyone can expect that all the Griffin players will be on the first place. So we are actually curious about the Chovy's current KDA. Tarzan, 15.3. It is also an impossible stat over here, so it's really unbelievable how well they're playing at LCK currently. And moving on to mid lane, Chovy, 30.8. It is almost the end of the first round and his KDA still remains this good. Kind of proves that how well he's performing right now. And number 3 and 4. Can you see the fierce competition going over there with 4.969 and 4.967? The records seem really close over here. And moving on to bot lane, Viper. Followed by Nuclear, Sanghyun, Ghost, and Teddy. Except Viper, actually, all the 4 players, their KD seems really even. So I think all the AD carry players are performing quite well currently. And lastly, it's support. Leehan, 11.1. Both Viper and Leehan, they always show great KDA, and also they're followed by Mara, Hoyt, and Ki Tusin. And Hoyt is the one who opens teamfights over there, but still has a very decent KDA. MetLife, do you remember your best KDA in your career? I actually don't remember. I think that means I actually never had a good KDA so far. These were the issues of last week. So let's move on to this week, because we are facing some new changes. So let's check out this CG over here. The 9.3 hotfix is coming up. It's gonna be live today. So Spell Thief and Ancient Coin, they now require an Elite champion within a certain range to earn gold, which means the No Farm or Frost Fancy meta will be out now. So I guess it will not be available for top laners or mid laners to use that. And also it also allows the junglers to not to buy any more wards. So it was the main reason for game getting extended. But with this new patch, I think the game will be a lot shorter from now on. But still, there is a possibility for Ezreal to use the support items, so we'll have to keep our eyes on it, especially on the bot lane. Going for maybe double Frostfangs or Ancient Coins, so it's still possible. And Ashe will be on the global ban list because under a certain situation, her ultimate is actually invisible currently, so this will be locked until this Sunday. So we are transferring to second round this week. First round is really at its end, and there are a lot of interesting matches coming up. Today we're having maybe a Telecom war, KT versus SK Telecom later today, and also we'll be looking forward to seeing which team will perform even better at second round robin.
통신사 라이벌 매치가 준비가 돼 있잖아요. 5시 경기도 당연히 중요하겠지만 8시 SKT와 KT, KT.
Today we're going to be having Griffin versus Genji, but also I'm really looking forward to see SK Telecom versus KT Roaster, the traditional telecom war. And tomorrow, Jiner is having their last match for the first round. Will they be able to kind of get out of their losing streak because it is against Kingzone? Well, I think Jiner is actually keep improving. They're evolving every match, so maybe they can make it happen against Kingzone. So this will be the end of the previous show of today, and I'm gonna pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ji-sun, and it's fantastic to be with you now for another week and the end of the first round robin. We have the last games for every single team until we switch over to the second round robin on Friday. And of course, we save the best till last. Genji versus Griffin to start off the day, and then the auspicious Telecom War, Papa Smithy. It is a good day to be an LCK fan.
It's a Kesper Cup Finals rematch into the Telecom War. On paper, definitely when Kesper was setting out, they're like, this Wednesday is stat. Let's break records. But in effect, it is, of course, very big favorites against very big underdogs. It could go 2-0, 2-0, but the waters around the world for League of Legends right now have never been murkier in 2019. All the big teams are losing. G2 have taken a loss. TL have taken a loss. Over in China, the bottom teams keep beating the top teams, so anything can happen. Does that extend to Korea? Does it not? I want to find out.
Yeah, well, we were actually asking this question on Sunday, and the answer was no, Papa Smithy.
Sure.
The right teams did win on the day.
But
however,
today
there were
is
some
the day,
upsets,
right?
But exactly right. I feel like coming into today, this is where we know. We're looking at it, we're like, Griffin, 16-1, there is no way that they lose this. There's no way they lose to Genji after coming in 3-0 in the last best of 5. That is going to be our first matchup. And then SKT versus KT looks like the shoes are well and truly on the other foot in 2019 in comparison to 2018. But let's start with Genji versus Griffin. The two Gs, but definitely a different G for Griffin in this one. I mean, in StarCraft, very famously, you type GG when you're losing, and Griffin typing GG when they're winning so far this season.
And who will be the realest G in the room between Genji and Griffin? A Kesper Cup Finals rematch. Damn, has a lot gone right for Griffin since then, and on that day, of course, was a 3-0 in pretty fast fashion. And everything's gone wrong for Genji, so we're looking at it here. It's actually not written on this text, but the cool thing is, if Griffin 2-0 today, they have the best round robin since the start of the LCK format at the start of 2015. In that time, 18-2 in best of ones is the best ever recorded score. SK Telecom T1 in the first round robin of summer 2015, back with Marin and the squad they had back then. Maybe the best team of all time. To me, a better team than even Samsung White in 2014. Now we fast forward all this way to Griffin. Can Griffin go 18-1? Their worst score, if they win the match, will in fact be matching 18-2.
And remember, also, that bottom point, 800 points for Chovy already in MVP score, and we've had end-of-season 1000s being the highest possible. As win rate after first turret at 100% is not exactly a stat that we really need to mention for Griffin, because they've got almost 100% win rate anyway.
Those KDA grass, you know, we were talking to
just disgusting.
host Mina, BitDoll, and of course Madlife, and they have 3 players above 15 KDA after playing 17 games of the season. They're 16-1.
They only have Sword under double-digit KDA.
To give you guys context, there's 18 games in an entire LCS split, and no one averages above 10 KDA with any regularity, but 3 players on the same team above 15 is outrageous stuff. Genji had a bounce-back performance. I was watching at home as they looked a lot better in their series against SKT. Still things to work on, but for once, more than one highlight.
Yeah, exactly right. And Kiva actually getting some solo kills here as well. And the thing that I think is very important is if you have a look at Fly, he's on his Lissandra and was actually playing relatively well. Fly really has been a weak point for Genji for the last few weeks, but wasn't the case, especially not in game number 1 against SKT.
It was a fun series to watch. I think there was issues on both sides, and SKT, they just can't replicate their form every game they play. I think they do have some down performances here. This was Fly getting back into the fight, having a big engage as Faker and the front line Corki. I think we could see a lot more Corki today. I'm not 100% convinced on the pick, but just with how much is being played on the LPL, even before the IE change, I think that just as an indication that Korean and LPL teams have been scrimming against each other in recent weeks.
Well, we're going to have a look at Griffin here. Chovy hunting for aimings. And yeah,
Aiming
your flash ain't gonna get you out of the way of that one.
Precisely everything wrong in this play. He was half a second late on the spell shield and flashed anyway. From there, though, it's not a lot of good things to talk about with a Freaka for Griffin. Just another 2-0.
It was, and it was a pretty damn impressive 2-0 as well. Freaka was certainly punished for almost everything that they did and got made to look like a second-rate squad, but that's what Griffin seems to be doing. It is only Sandbox that's been able to find a game, and even then, they needed as many OP picks as they could possibly get on that current patch. Griffin just diving with reckless abandon, but can they do it against Gen G, who have been looking a little bit better? The answer in my mind is a certain yes, but you never know. Things have been topsy-turvy around the world, and the winds of change may hit Korea today.
And I know that I judge players, like everyone else, based on the numbers. The biggest number, the best player, the lowest number, the worst. Easily 5 times the player is Tarzan over Peanut, is what I'm learning today.
Oh my god.
The rest of the stats here, not so interesting. It's not nice being 11th on anything, but no. DPM for junglers, 11th, so a sub is ahead of Peanut.
Says actually a lot for Peanut at the moment because, you know, he has been herbivoring a little bit more than you'd otherwise like, and on champions like Elise, that is not where you want to be seeing your jungler. Peanut really needs to find a bounce back. I don't know whether against Griffin is going to be the best place to find it. However, you've got to start somewhere, and if they can find a win here, imagine that for a momentum boost. Would feel a whole lot better.
Griffin look just like they outmatched Gen G in every role, but we know the best of these Gen G players, which again, we haven't seen on the Rift at the same time in 2019, should be a lot more competitive. It wasn't competitive in the Casper Cup final, but Gen G had a great tournament until that moment. Can they redefine their season? Can they find whatever's happening around the world and channel it into another upset victory for the first time in recent memory? Gen G need to find another level to catch the team at another level. Griffin.
Yep, well, we're going to see them right now. This is your roster as Roach will be leading the charge. It was Cuvée up against SKT in every game, like we mentioned earlier on. But this time around, it's the Young Guns' turn. We'll see whether he's going to be able to change things here for Gen G. No Frostmancy. We are finally hotfixed here at 9.3. Feels like we're going to have 3 distinct metas one week after the other, because I believe next week is going to be 9.4. So certainly a lot of changes week to week here in the LCK.
And even day to day, Atlas. We can start the week with no Yasuos, and 2 days later, everyone's first pick, first banning Yasuos. Just seeing where teams are on the first day of a match week is so interesting to see. And when it comes to Korea, people only look to the anointed representative in MSI. People are already handing the title to Griffin. You understand why, based on 8 best-of-3s, but there's 10 to play. And remember that Griffin started their debut season in the LCK 8-1 before crashing down to earth in the second round robin. They're looking to go one better, and one better than almost perfection is entire perfection. They are shooting for the 9-0.
Yep. Also shooting for that 18-1, the best record in LCK history for a round robin. And when the second best, if they are able to do it, is 2015 SKT, only losing, really, in MSI, that incredible best-of-5 against Edward Gaming. That was one hell of a year for SKT, and could this be one hell of a year for Griffin, setting themselves up already, but this Gen G squad are going to try and pip them at the post here right at the very end.
And you just look at the team and say, if they were to win, who's popping off? Because apart from Ruler, who we can always kind of ink in, someone needs to help Ruler get to the late game. And it has to me be Peanut or Fly. I think it has to be one of these players having one of those career best performances. The Aurelion Soul coming and dusting out, Peanut popping off on Lee Sin. Because you look at the team of Griffin here, it stays the same, but it's just utter class on the Rift every time we see them. It's game 1 where Griffin looks the most vulnerable. I think game 2, teams are just broken and they just roll over to Griffin. A game 1 performance, a game 1 draft, an inspired moment that is going to be played again and again by Gen G fans. That is what we need to see today from Gen G, because otherwise the etc., the every other scenario is a Griffin 2-0.
Yeah, exactly right. And I feel like it needs to happen early, which is something that's a very tough ask. For Gen G, you mentioned Fly and Peanut needing to outperform, but Chovy has been so extraordinarily good, and I look at that mid lane as such a mismatch between Gen G and Griffin. Fly has not been up to par, and Chovy has been exceeding just about every expectation that you can have for a mid laner. 4 MVPs in a row, looking to stack that one higher here today in game number 1. Could potentially actually take that record from Tarzan, who had that 4 in a row earlier in the season.
Here's what I'll say. The only time to me that Griffin have looked vulnerable, that Griffin have looked less than a next-level team, is actually in pick and ban, where sometimes they roll the dice and have 3 losing lanes and a Zac, and I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? But then they're really good, right, in game. I think Trace can set the start here. Trace and Edgar, I think, get one of those priority draws with 3 winning lanes, and then if you pilot it, not at 100%, but somewhere near there, you can beat Griffin. They are not an unbeatable team. No one around the world is infallible. So because of that, pick and ban is sometimes where Griffin can kind of trip over their own shoelaces, and let's see if Gen G can find a win really early.
Yeah, I'd actually really like that, and I'd actually like it with Zac in the jungle as well. I feel like Peanut has been performing almost the best so far this season on that Zac pickup, and if you can get priority in all 3 lanes, it really will give Peanut that ability, that agency to get around the map and really get things going. We know that his Zac likes to strike much earlier than a lot of others, especially when he debuted it after his buffs last year.
Remember, guys, there has been some roster additions in some squads. For example, Griffin have a new sub-jungler, but those are not live until the second round robin kicks off. That is the second match of Friday. Last match I cast of the week will be when those new rosters are in effect, so no changes there. We got to close out business in the first round robin. Nothing but business for Viper on screen right now. It's nice and warm in the studio, at least from our vantage point, but still a hot pack there. But Viper never want cold hands on stage, but
Certainly
we're 8 best-of-3s in, so I don't think any stage fright issues for either side.
No, especially not when you've been winning every single series. You could imagine that it's relative comfort up there. They sit on those chairs and they're like, oh, it's my winning chair. Once again, not so much for life, though, as you can see on your screen right here. He wants to get his hands on his Gragas. His Gragas has been fantastic in a lot of instances.
And when we roll into pick bans, there's definitely 1 or 2 picks, so that this guy could pop off on this.
Oh, yeah.
But that is really clear info, and basically every other champion is 0-4, 0-3, so you kind of just look at Griffin and say, which poisons are we picking? Like, who are we banning out? Because with 3 bans, you can probably ban out the effective champion pool of 2 people.
Yes.
A duo lane, a couple of solo lanes, 2 jungle picks. There's a lot that can go on with these bans here, so it's very intriguing to see where Griffin's eyes are trained on as the Griffin fans continue to multiply, Atlas.
Yeah.
We're getting into a Griffin epidemic when it comes to new LCK fans.
Yeah, we'll actually have to check out to see who's going to be louder, the Griffin fans or the SKT fans, in our next series. But Pick and Ban is finally ready, and do Griffin just throw the gauntlet? Do they just ban the Gragas and the Lissandra on the red side and just not care about these really powerful picks? I guess it's time to find out.
How Griffin approaches Pick Ban today will be very interesting. Loading into Pick Ban now, VOD Watchers joining us. Reminder, we are on patch 9.3, just like last week, but the hot fixes are live. So the only Frostmancy strategies that can really be run are in the duo lane. Ezreal, of course, with Frostmancy, a pretty famous one.
Yep.
So there could still be shenanigans, and Griffin have been loving bot lane Galio with Frostmancy. They're just going to ban away Galio, and it's our first targeted support Galio ban since Sandbox was drawing some for Joker.
Yeah, and the questions that we were asking are going to be shedding some light on themselves here, as the Ezreal's going to be banned away here by Griffin. I feel like much more important to get rid of it when you're up against Tarula. We saw on Sunday, the Ezreal priority was relatively low, but we didn't necessarily have our big Ezreal players playing on that day, but we saw Teddy versus Deft. It was whoever got the Ezreal won the game, so not going to see that one. Here is the Gragas going to be taken away from life.
And isn't this interesting? Because they banned Gragas in a spot where I would have thought Lissandra, and I agree that Life has been really good on Gragas, and he's more of an engaged player, so even though he has wins on Braum, the fact that he can't be a primary engage kind of makes you feel really good about the scenario. But they give up Lissandra if Gen G want it, and Urgot, which of course is the staple pick for anyone. But because both of them are up, they're going to hover both. We're going to see a Nocturne hover, very intriguingly, into the Urgot lock-in. I actually thought LCK was weirdly dropping Urgot priority at the start of last week, but it should still be super high, and thankfully it is for Gen G.
And certainly going to be very high for Roach as well. He's been picking it almost every single time he can get his hands on it. Has been playing very impressively on the champion as well, as Sword is hovering. Another champion that can dabble in the Frostmancy on the bottom side of the map, and there's the Thresh to be picked up alongside it. Does make it look a little bit like a bottom lane duo, but certainly the Cassiopeia can be flexed into multiple different lanes. I love this. The Yasuo are going to be locked in from Gen G. And does this mean a bottom lane to come out? Because the Alistar is there as well for life.
And this is something we were talking about off screen, is that Yasuo priority by midweek last week was going way up.
Oh, yeah. And
bot lane Yasuo is being invested in pretty reliably. I think there's some matchups you really like it into. I think Ezreal is a really good matchup for Yasuo. But we'll wait and see if it does end up being 2 first-round Awesome Dude duos on the bot side. Ruler has still never played an Awesome Dude in competitive play. He's only played AD carry, so this would be a big movement away for him. He still hasn't played a Cassio game. He never played any of those other non-AD carries last year. So the first thought is Fly, but given that Fly isn't a standard Yasuo player, do we see history made today in one way or the other?
Certainly could be. I actually think that it will be Ruler. As far as the Awesome Dudes that he's been practicing in solo queue ever since they first came out, it was the Yasuo for Ruler when he was mucking around on it. Of course, never played it in competitive, but has got a lot of games on the champion.
Griffin are the unique team where they can have 4 champions and a support, and Viper would have played all of those in competitive play before. We are heavily expecting Jace top against Urgot here, just for a priority matchup on the side of Griffin, but like we mentioned, things can go differently. Nocturne going to be banned. It's one of Peanut's fallback champions. When it comes to Peanut this season, Lee Sin has been his go-to. I wonder if Griffin would consider taking it away, because we finally saw Tarzan play it for the first time in his LCK era. Wasn't necessarily awe-inspiring, but has looked great on it in solo queue, so will be a potential contested jungle pick in the second round, with it jumping up in priority and having really good synergy with the Yasuo.
I think that's fantastic. I think the Griffin are going to go for a Lissandra pickup here. We saw Chovy actually have an MVP performance on the pickup as we jump out of pick and ban, I believe, unless... Oh, okay, so a little bit of an issue there, but I think we are still here. We are still here. We're all right. Don't worry, guys.
Hold me,
Olaf's going to be banned away, and that's an insta-lock.
Extra hold me. I'm not sure about this one.
Yeah, I'm not sure about it either.
So let's see where this is going. The Urgot matchup is one that I've definitely been, on paper, a fan of, but actually with Executioner's calling running around, this matchup's going better and better for Urgot, so Sylas mid might actually be the flex here. Getting a lot of issues, unfortunately, when it comes to the pick and ban guys, but I assume the Sylas pick is going to be a legitimate one.
I mean, after the first little while that we've had with Sylas, the weird thing is that, yes, we've been talking about the Urgot matchup theoretically being okay, but in competitive play, it's his worst matchup.
It's one of those things where if you play it out, especially when the champion is new, and you think about it, which is how I usually think of these things, it does have a lot of merit, but I think Executioner's calling being rolled in has really taken away those trades where you end with the Kingslayer. Now, if you end with the Kingslayer, you get 150 HP instead of 300 plus, and it just feels a lot worse. So even that one, I'm like, I can see it, but I don't really feel it, if you know what I mean. So.
And also in the kill trades that you're taking up against Spellbook Urgot, often you're going to get ignited anyway.
And remember, in that G2 loss, they were trying to get a win with the Sylas and lost, actually, Atlas. So maybe Griffin trying to be a bit mortal here. Whenever teams try Sylas, it's largely worked against the team wherever they stand on the standings.
Yeah, we've seen a few different things.
Nuggery.
Yeah. And the AP has looked very good. In fact, the region that's played the most Sylas at the moment is Japan. With a whole bunch of games.
OPL as well,
already.
right?
Yeah, so 6 for the LPL. The OPL, so that's second highest most played, but only 50% win rate. In Japan, 72.7% win rate. They really like the Sylas, and they're playing it a heck of a lot all over the Rift.
If you look at, and you actually have Games of Legends open with the different regions in Sylas, I believe there's no major region with a 50% or better win rate on sites. All these play-in regions that are getting good value out of Sylas.
A lot less games coming in over there as well, and in fact, out of the major regions, Korea has the most games played.
I mean, we also play best of threes, so LPL and
That's
LCK
true.
are likely to have the most games played of a champion. LPL still on 9.2, makes watching those games a little bit tricky still this week. I heard they're doing their good old skip all the way to 9.4 in typical
what they do.
fashion.
That's how it generally works around the Chinese New Year. So here we are, back in again, and I believe we're going to have a repeat of the same pickup, so this should hopefully rocket through pretty quickly.
Let's get in there. Let's get into the second round. That's where our eyes are trained. We had Viper locking in Sylas and trying to make sense of returning to that Doshgar and Sylas pick that only Nuggery has won on so far. in the LCK.
Only 3 teams actually picking the Sylas up in SKT, Sandbox, and Kingzone. Rascal playing both of the games on Kingzone's side, whereas Faker and Khan have both picked up the Sylas in top and mid. We'll see where Griffin is going to put it. Could be potentially in a lot of different places, but we're looking at the Cassiopeia as being most likely on the bottom side, with a Jace on the top side for Sword in that priority matchup into the Urgot, and then I'd like the Sylas into the mid lane, especially being piloted by Chovy, just because with his Akali gone, I want to see a melee assassin for it.
There's some simple things you can say, like Roach played basically only Urgot when he's played in the LCK. He's 4-2 on the pick. He got some Aatrox wins recently, but Urgot is kind of his pick, so you're thinking Urgot top. We're going to get to the second round because, again, there's never been anything other than 80 carries played by Ruler. It's actually a huge thing. He was the last of the 80 carries. I had that last of the Mohicans meme that I tweeted out last season. He was the only standstill when Prey, Bang, and everyone else was returning to the off-meta stuff. He refused to go there, so it'd already be a statement for him against the prototype of awesome dudes, the prototype of non-marksman.
The Darius player.
He played Darius most recently. Unlikely he can fit in a Darius if Sylas is actually locked in here. We'll wait and see if the Sylas pick was legitimate.
Hey, well, I mean, the Sylas is most likely going to be locked in here by... Oh, actually, no. So, it wasn't actually a legit pick.
Good to know. Okay, no Sylas on the side of Griffin so far. It turns out that was a misdraft. We're going to be going into Aatrox territory, which now makes you wonder about who the bot laner is, because Aatrox probably going into the Urgot lane.
Yeah, and also could be going into the jungle as well. Actually, since the Umbral Dash changes, I've liked him more as a jungler rather than a top laner. Is Fly! Finally, someone other than BDD has done it as the A-Soul to be picked up for the mid lane for Gen G.
That's what we've been looking for, the dragon we've been waiting for. BDD was the entree, but the main course, sorry NA fans, the real main course here is definitely going to be Fly on Aurelion Sol.
But Papa, do you know what this means? This means absolutely everyone can set Ruler up for a last breath. Absolutely everyone. Voice of Light can throw them all backwards. Yasuo can jump on top. The answer is going to be that Sylas, as Viper has it at the moment. But I have a feeling it's going to be going into the hands of Chovy.
All right.
Griffin have one hell of a team composition.
And here we go. We found comfort, finally, Atlas, on the side of Gen G. But amusingly, Ruler is the one who's conforming. Everybody else is on close to ultra comfort. Life is a playmaker. Peanut is a Lee Sin main. Roach has found most of his success on Urgot. And finally, Fly brings back Aurelion Sol. Knock-ups are plenty. And Ruler in the late game will profit off them.
And what were we talking about before? Getting Peanut onto a priority champion, onto a champion that he feels the comfort on, Fly as well. How can he be on Lissandra and, like, have a decent game? Well, it doesn't actually matter. He's on ultra comfort now. In the Aurelion Sol, finally able to play it here in 2019. A lot of very exciting adjustments that Gen G have made coming into this game, and Griffin have thrown a hell of a lot of gauntlets with this composition.
Definitely, you look at Gen G and say, man, some nice synergy here, and Fly on a pick that he really made his name on when he returned from China back to, at the time, KT Rolster, where he was starting mid laner. He was big on the Aurelion Sol pick, brought it to Longzhu, brought it around the world. He's finally back on Aurelion Sol after BDD has played 2 games of it. Can he actually find a relevant performance on a champion that is not Lissandra? Is something we are waiting to see in the 2019 season. Meanwhile, Griffin have gone for the sort of comp where you look at the picks and say, oh, I could see this losing. Oh, other teams haven't been able to win with this.
Yeah.
Tier list-wise and top region-wise, Sylas hasn't been winning. Can Chovy make us a believer? Can Griffin find the victory in game number 1?
Well, we'll find out right now as we hit the rift. Griffin faithful in full voice, as you can see, Ruler down here on the bottom side, just waiting to see whether there's any sort of invade shenanigans. We know that it's not going to be happening.
And Ruler plays a melee champion for the first time in his career. Really cool to see. Refused to jump on any mages or any of those melee assassins or other off-meta picks in 2018.
Until the Yasuo, which I think is the best thing, because what Gen G does is they play around Ruler, and now they have everyone as a Yasuo facilitator. That last breath could be activated off absolutely everyone, and Life has the quintessential pick for him as well.
Important note here, Chovy has gone Aftershock mid lane on the Sylas, when you see Aftershock Sylas, it's almost always jungle in solo queue from what I have seen. Obviously in professional play, we've seen Grasp and Comet as well. No one has really found a min-max keystone for the Sylas. No one's really found a build they're super happy for with Sylas, so we'll wait and see what the approach is here from Chovy. If it's Faker, he likes to go for that kind of off-tank Rod of Ages, Iceborne Gauntlet kind of build. Wait and track what Chovy prefers, as bot lane, no AD carries to be found in a Gen G series.
Yeah, so that's going to mean that Cassiopeia has a range advantage down on the bottom side of the map, which is not something that you talk about all that often.
She also has the interaction with the wind wall, where Q does go through wind wall.
Yeah.
Does mean you can harass here, and Qmax is almost always the standard. So a standard mid lane interaction. It's in a bot lane. Alistair Yasuo, when we first had Yasuo bot lanes, was the very obvious Yasuo duo, right? Because
yes.
Alistair from level 2 has a ultra-reliable, targeted, headbutt pulverize, engage for the last breath, but a very weak laning duo at level 1, a very weak laning duo at most levels. There was a time where Soraka was just a hard counter to this lane, because it's so hard for them to step up outside of an all-in. So because it's double range against double melee, it's time to give up basically any lane presence for a while.
That's 11-0, and no, it's not Frostmancy, guys. We do have the hot fix, and Yasuo wouldn't be doing that anyway. Double Relic, though, means that they're going to be very healthy down here. As Ruler and Life just wait for the minion wave to turn up, not in any rush to get anything done, and they've got a decent amount of vision already as early wards placed down in the river. Tarzan already taking the Rift Scuttler and heading back into his jungle, as Aatrox jungle was what came out from Griffin in the end, which is understandable based on what we've seen so far.
I gotta say, priority-wise, bot lane for Griffin, obvious. You can see it on screen. Jace, implied. Mid lane is probably a bit more even. I give a slight advantage to Aurelion Sol, because you can just dump his mana and back. That is the nature of Aurelion Sol, but priority-wise...
Aurelion Sol is sort of new Hecarim mid lane.
Well, this is a great time to invade, though. With that priority we spoke about, so hard for Peanut to find too much control of the jungle. Lehends roams first, Chovy roams first. Because of that, great video actually produced by Shakarez and also Vedius from the LEC on lane priority. This is what happens when you get lane priority. You invade first, and your jungler says, guys, I need some backup, and you ain't getting any.
Yep, not a chance. As Fly is able to deal with this minion wave, but it's a little bit too late. So that's going to be a 3-buff start coming in for Tarzan. Not going to get double scuttled, though, as Peanut was able to grab the northern one. And a back is going to come in. So like you say, Fly, pretty comfortable with heading back home basically whenever he wants, because he's got that big old Comet. As our Ruler has a wind wall for the hook, and Lehen's not going to find any joy on that one at this stage. So things still just calming down. All of that extra priority and all of that extra jungle control that Griffin has is not going to amount to too much, as now Ruler looking to go aggressive against Viper.
We know that Peanut was bot side, but that was not information revealed the side of Griffin. You can see why he wasn't a big fan of some of these lanes, because definitely early laning phase for Vlad or Yasuo is perennially going to be a bit of a struggle. With Peanut's coverage, they get to push up, and first time they've actually had access to the minion wave. Do note that even if all CS is gained by Viper, it's about a 9 CS lead for the side of Viper, so it's not like 15-0 like it started. That's all about minions that hadn't died or being frozen, but it seems like just over a minion and a half wave advantage to the side of Griffin in the first 5 minutes.
And Papa, I want to talk about what Sylas sort of means in this particular game.
Sure.
Sylas gets a whole bunch of different abilities when he's playing in different compositions and against different compositions especially, but I just want to point out that there's an Unbreakable Will available. Unkillable Sylas sounds like a really horrible thing to have to deal with.
Yes, I can track the logic, but I think when you hit late game and the, man, don't I have a lot of base damage on my passive proccing if I abuse it goes away, I don't think it really matters that much, because you already have Aftershocks. You're already pretty tanky.
Yeah,
being ultra tanky doesn't really change much to me, so I agree there's games where that makes sense. If you were Comet full AP, I think it could be nice, but in this particular game, I actually look at the enemy side and I'm like, Urgot ult, I think, is always the one you love, because whatever build you go, it's reliably strong. Whoa. Nice little flay there from Lehends, actually, to stop Life from getting any value.
Nice
it's not
sidestep from Ruler.
It's definitely not an ultra high value Sylas ult stealing game, but there is, of course, nice synergies to talk about.
Yeah, Voice of Light also very, very strong coming in from Chovy, but not going to be scaling as much as some of the other buttons that you'd have access to. As now Gen G looking to try and find some calmness, some collectedness, and they're doing a pretty good job finding it. 6 minutes into the game, only 300 gold going to be the lead from Griffin, but you'd expect that given the priority that they are going to have.
I want to
having a look in the mid lane, everything's great for Fly.
I wanted to talk about the mid lane, but I might have to hold the point as Tarzan's setting up a tent in the bot lane against double melee. Seems like Peanut is aware of what could be happening here.
Well, Hook is going to land here under Rule. A good playback as Miasma is down, stopping any of the dashes from coming through. But Peanut bides his time. He's waiting. Only level 5, though, so not going to have the kick just yet. And that Sonic Wave just going wide onto Tarzan. So just a bit of biffo down on the bottom side. Not too much to come from it.
What I want to draw, though, is usually when Aurelion solo's in the game, you look at the jungle mid duo and say, these guys start roaming level 3, level 4. Damn, they're going to punish. But Peanut had his jungle stolen, and counter-jungling, being a battle ward against the enemy jungler when the enemy mid laner is Aurelion Sol, takes away any realistic roam potential. If you have eyes on Aurelion Sol under his turret and the enemy jungler, you don't have that same threat of Aurelion Sol really taking over the game. At this point, both Fly and Peanut are level 6 and can actually have access to the side lanes pretty quickly. So they've subverted the first 7 minutes. Now you're getting to the point where you're like, they really need to make this first roam work, because if they don't get some of these losing lanes a bit of breathing room, there could eventually be pretty significant CS leads, as the first item finish is going to be pretty sweet on the side of Griffin.
Yeah, and Chovy already 11 CS in the lead, is going to go back to base. Finishes off a Catalyst, so it looks like Rod of Ages could be item number 1, unless he wants to go for an Abyssal Mask, which I guess kind of works on the Sylas as well. Haven't seen it so far. It's been a lot more the Tank Echo type ideas with the Iceborne Gauntlet and things like that, but top side of the map is where you generally see that, so Chovy going to be changing things. You know, Faker was building a little bit more tanky from the mid lane when he picked up the Sylas as well.
But in solo queue, he was actually commonly building Rod of Ages, and you look at the team and say, yes, it gives his Cassio more damage, but the enemy team is 1 magic damage threat, and it's a roaming magic damage threat as well, so I think the Abyssal Mask has pretty low value overall in terms of how the game is going to play out, which is going to be Sylas in the side lane with Teleport, so probably going to be Rod of Ages. Here's that all-in. Aftershock procced, and Fly says, well, not much I can do.
And that is with Chainlash maxed here from Chovy as well, so normally we see Kingslayer being maxed from the Sylas, but this time around in the mid lane, Chovy going for as much wave clear as possible, and against Aurelion Sol, I actually think that's genius. Being able to get lane priority against the Dragon, prevent him from moving around the map willy-nilly.
And if you're out there saying, okay, I still don't really understand Sylas in a solo lane with Aftershock, maybe Rod of Ages, give me another champion, Papa Smithy, to point at. You think, Rod of Ages into something like Azonia's, and Aftershock, kind of Swainish, right? Feels like it's going to be one of those kind of approaches to the Sylas, is trying to play him for zone control, and maxing your CC ability first does build into that idea of being a kind of zone control mage in a team fight. So I think that's the Sylas we're seeing threatened by Chovy in this Aftershock mid-lane situation.
Well, starting to get smashed around a little bit here by Fly, who's unfortunately just got comets everywhere for Chovy to deal with, but Chovy should be alright here, just clearing out minions left, right, and center, and continuing to have a pretty powerful advantage here in mid. I feel like Sylas does feel a little bit like Swain and Cassidy mixed together, or something like that, you know? It's just a little bit more of a melee version of the old Swain.
I mean, I saw the Kayle champion spotlight, and I think she's got the Kassadin thing going on, so we'll leave Kassadin to those two.
I think it's the Kassadin of a few years back when he needed to be on the ban list every single game.
Yeah, look, we haven't seen the numbers or how it plays out, but certainly you see the level 16 passive, and you say, okay.
Yeah, you look at a kit like that, and you're like, oh man, these better have some very tiny numbers, otherwise it's going to be busted.
I would give Riot the benefit of the doubt for trade-offs, but then Akali happens, so we'll wait and see if they have their eye in on that one. Zooming into the mid lane, well, we finally see some action. Tarzan ahead of the play.
Yeah, well, Peanut's actually just going to safeguard all the way over. Kick stolen here by Chovy. Can bounce each other back however often they want. But Tarzan's going to turn up, and that means that nothing doing really. And Dragon Rage is picked up by Chovy because I feel like he wants it for a potential roam play. Peanut moving down, last breath, onto Viper, who takes the lantern, but it's in the wrong direction as Ruler's now in trouble. Oh, Viper, he whiffs the ultimate, and now Ruler's trying to chase after him. The Q going to land, but it's going to be onto Tarzan as he's going to live. Viper's okay, and the kill actually comes down for Tarzan. World Ender's in there. He's got the full life bar, but is actually going to head back home as Chovy in a bit of a kerfuffle with Fly, but it's going to continue on the bottom side of the map. Tarzan survives, and Ruler's going to fall. It's a disaster for Gen G when it could have been so good.
And it seemed like it would be perfect. There was no value out of the Petrifying Gaze, and yet even in the 1%ers, Griffin make you a believer. They're able to turn it around. They get the 2 kills. Chovy just roaming around the mid lane. and keeping Fly in the lane. The roam advantage massive for Fly, but the ability to get out of lane, 0% chance.
Yeah, exactly. This is the thing, because I feel like with that Q-Max now, it's just so much wave clear coming in from Chovy that the Dragon just has to be there the whole time. No common legend options at all, as Griffin going to land the hook to start this one off. But watch where the Petrifying Gaze goes. It's
very bold. Remember, Lehens opens this with his jungler nowhere near onto the Alistar as ultimate. That's the curious part. I was looking for the Petrifying Gaze, and I believe it got Windwall. Regardless, it got no value. As the fight comes on, Tarzan is there behind the play. Viper with his sidesteps just lives on a sliver. A Q there, and he's done. Backs away from there. We thought the play might be over as we watched the brawling in mid lane, but this time the death sentence is a lot more clean. They take down Ruler, they take down the duo of Gen.G.
Yeah, and now that range advantage is going to be even more prevalent on the bottom side. Viper has a bunch more items and a 20 CS advantage and a whole minion wave to pick up here underneath the turret as well. I mean, as far as having your cake and eating it too is concerned, Griffin doing pretty well on the bottom side of the map. 3,000 gold is where the lead is, sort of erupting out of nowhere, and I feel like we're going to be a lot more honest with our gold leads here. Last week was Frostmancy making things a bit confusing. Gold was a bit strange, as on the top side, Chovy finds the abscond onto Fly, and the Voice of Light does come out, but oh, the flash has to be used, and the Infernal Chain's not going to register.
And Peanut was just soloing down the Drake as bot lane.
All right, we got another double play coming back here, but a lot of damage now onto Viper. Finally gets cut down by the Lee Sin as the knockup comes forward. Sword has to complete the teleport, of course, and now Roach could be in trouble. Tarzan chasing after him. Chovy trying to get on in here, doesn't get knocked up, as there's the abscond to get right into this fight right now, and thankfully does have that aftershock to keep him alive. Life is going to give up his own life just to save the rest of his team, and now Griffin have a big push onto the bottom lane outer turret.
A bot lane party. Finally, the Cassiopeia goes down. Ultimate was a couple of seconds available from cooldown there. They're going to chase for more, though. Tarzan's
looking
rolling
for some knockups. Yeah, exactly. I feel like Aatrox versus Zergod has been a matchup no matter where both of these champions are, as now Ruler underneath the turret without a wind wall struggling against Sword, where I've seen this matchup. This doesn't go so well. Okay, just boops him out of the way. No wind wall available, I don't think, earlier on, but we'll have it now for any cheeky shock blasts.
I gotta say, Griffin are getting in the mud with Gen.G this game.
Yeah.
They are brawling. They are not looking for any finesse in their early play. Some great individual moments, but they are not looking for anything other than early fights. They're skirmishing a lot harder than they were since about week 1 of the LCK. The turret plates rain down on bot side, and the reason why Griffin re-engaged 4v5 was a lot of ults were used for one kill. The full commitment from Gen.G meant that after the play was over, whatever fallback objectives were kind of free for the side of Griffin. They get all those turret plates. They do get the Ocean Drake as well, and they're roaming topside to stop there being an answering Rift Herald from Gen.G.
Yeah, thankfully for Peanut, he is able to get the Rift Scuttler, so at least they'll have permanent vision for the next little while that can't be removed. But looks like the transition of power for Griffin will be to move their vision towards topside, and Shelly's not going to be an easy objective here for Gen.G like you talk about. Zhonya's is completed here for Viper, so he's going to be a lot more comfortable, especially in these physical matchups, as this is something that can happen basically all day. On-demand ultimates here for Ruler, and Peanut comes in just the right time.
And against another team, if you're ever caught unawares, flash headbutt is enough. You don't even need to pulverize, right, to get the last breath going. Any displacement will do it, and everyone's got one. So because of that, Griffin are actually for once surprised by the decisiveness of life on a playmaker. This is why they drew a Gragaspan, you'll remember, in the first round of the pick and ban. From there, we already talked about how all the fallback objectives after the all-in were going to be freebies for Griffin. They get a kill, get the Drake, and also that bot lane turret. Remember, the priority in the lanes, other things being equal, with the side of Griffin. Instead of 3 losing lanes, we're looking at 3 winning lanes in CS, and in some cases, winning by a bit.
Yeah, winning by a massive margin, as 20 CS was the value for Viper against Ruler, but it certainly is the value for Chovy now against Fly. It feels like Chovy's able to get every minion extraordinarily easily here, and Sword putting on pressure. But Control Ward just going to be the priority here for the Sylas, so not going to be worried too much about the Jace. Moving on into the mid lane. He's going to head back down bottom side and continue putting on pressure, as Griffin has successfully moved their lanes around to make sure that they can't get punished or anything like that, rotated on after taking that outer turret.
Right now, looking at item timing, Shiv is done for Rulers, becoming the new standard. When I saw the item changes, I thought IE Shiv would be the new build. but I think players are going kind of IE Sterix rather than Phantom Dancer on.
Yeah, I feel like the lifeline
Yasuo
choice in the Sterix is just a more handsome one for the Yasuo.
I'm a big fan because I think Phantom Dancer was heavily buffed for 80 carries, so they don't have to drop off damage as much. They can still get attack speed and crit while getting a shield compared to, say, a Maw or other things. But for Yasuo in particular, given that he really used the old passive well, I think it was pretty much a straight nerf. So Sterix second might be the decision here. Maybe full damage if he feels like they need it. Part of Aegis timing's done for both mid laners. But Griffin continue to rotate, and Fly still caught under his own turret.
Well, Chovy not actually going to pick up any aggro here, and he's super healthy with his
Oh
run of Aegis. Oh my god! I think Fly was there a moment ago. There's the kickback. Ruler finds the ultimate, but the flash is going to get Tarzan out of there, and Griffin get away scot-free, and it looks like they will also be able to pick up this turret.
And apparently they don't like Fly very much. It was a double flash to get just a kill. They should be able to take the turret as well, but they don't have enough vision, so they back away. That's some rare bloodlust for Griffin. They
I
really...
feel like that's been what's happening so far this game. And I love it against Gen G because what did Gen G do? Not a whole lot in the early games most of the time. And Griffin have said, well, let's just make this a high-octane early game. And what are they going to do about it? The answer is not a whole lot and not enough against Griffin.
Super hard engage here onto the mid lane. This one, the kills, they got him. Good news on that one. Sword returns to the bot side. Black Cleaver in tow. Not going to have any kill threat onto Roach in the side lane. But already you're seeing some of those farm bounties and even some kill bounties grow on the side of Griffin. Gen G, they've been cooped under their own turrets, even with their roaming mid lane. We were so excited to see the return of Aurelion Sol. We've had 3 games of Aurelion Sol and no game that's been dominated by Aurelion Sol roaming so far in LCK Spring.
Yeah, I mean, BDD has looked good on the champion, and we've been wondering why more people haven't been picking him up since the slight upgrades to him, but this is not really making me a believer thus far. Fly could certainly get some things done, but it just feels like Chovy's Sylas pick has worked far better than we could have possibly imagined here in the mid lane against the Dragon. 002, 650 farm bounty for Chovy there, and the mid lane outer turret just falls organically as it's just watched. Fly on the bottom side of the map, not going to be able to help keep his turret alive at all, and his Rod of Ages is a few stacks behind that of Chovy's.
Let's talk about team comps here, because we've kind of been focused on, oh, look at this quirky pick, and wow, amazing outplay.
Yeah.
And talk about how the comps play out. Do notice that Griffin have really no engage on their side. Thresh Hook is not going to work in the late game. If you try to ARAM with this team, you have some decent poke, but again, your Siege is not that great either. He'd rather Jason a side lane than sieging in mid lane. So this comp from Griffin is much better with map control, because kiting back their very powerful Petrifying Gaze reactively, for example, the box also. So Griffin really want to make this game around a Baron take. They've got Cassiopeia, if she has blue buff, and as you notice, not Ludens, but the extra mana of going for Seraphs. It's largely about neutral control into winning a team fight that way. Gen G are about roaming picks. That didn't happen in the early game, much harder in the mid to late game. And then team fight engages. So if you engage on a team that likes to counter-engage, that does suit the side of Griffin as top side.
Yeah, Ruler has to flash and has to use his wind wall very early here, but Lehens does have the box now on cooldown in trade for that flash from Ruler, so that's something at least to take away here from Gen G, but not having flash on Ruler is very scary.
That does mean we can get moments like this where the game doesn't play into either side. When Griffin don't have map control, they're slowly trying to get it. Meanwhile, Gen G just thinking about an engage. Don't see it yet.
Pulv is going to come in. Last breath being held onto for a very long time. His life has to flash to get himself out. That's the kickback onto Chovy to avoid him getting into the backline, but Tarzan is still there. Viper looking for a lot more damage. The Petrifying Gaze already used very early in this fight. And Gen G do kite away relatively effectively, but priority now given over to Griffin on this Infernal.
You kind of see the the worst of both team comps there is Griffin bait and engage, which they want. We already mentioned they're a counter-engage team, but then Viper's flashing just to get a single kill because they have no more chase after Gen G start to disengage. So ends up being very messy. However, the fallback objective after all of that is Infernal. They still get the objective they're playing around, and Griffin will just want to increasingly make this game 3 control wards around Baron and baiting an over-eager engage from someone like Life around the Baron.
Yeah, and it will be easier and easier to take down the cow as well, and especially the purple worm that you're talking about, the Baron, because Viper just turns his Archangels into a Seraph's Embrace. Now more items to be picked up here as he goes back home. It's just a blasting one, but I believe third item, Void Staff, would make some sense here for the Cassiopeia. Sword underneath this turret. Probably not going to walk into Peanut and Roach, but Actually does. Roach is going to answer that one with a Purge, and that's why he doesn't take any notable damage.
And you know what Ruler's answering us with? An Infinity Edge second for
wow,
who needs a lifeline, baby?
Yeah.
He's got life as a support. Lifeline is just irrelevant in this game. He's going for max damage. It means pick power is strong. It means the right team fight where eyes are not on the Yasuo, he can really clean up. You look at the enemy team of Griffin and tanks. I mean, they don't really have a real tank, right?
Yeah.
On the side of Griffin, a lot of off tanks, Aatrox passive, and Chovy with Aftershock, but no hard tanks. So given that, and Magic Resist being the second item choice of Chovy, there's always an outside chance that even 5,000 gold behind, one Yasuo fight can do it. Now, you're asking for a team fight victory against Griffin, and they don't seem to lose team fights ever after 20 minutes, but there is at least a slim win condition, which on another day, Gen.G may never have been granted against this opposition.
Yeah, precisely. Very excited to see whether Ruler can make it work, and I actually love this about this particular build on the Yasuo as well, going Static Shiv. Then you get to build that pickaxe into whatever you want if it is your next item purchase, because of course Sterix builds out of it as well. So you can be a lot more flexible on your way towards the Infinity Edge.
You want to see some flexing? Look at that mid lane CS. That's insane lead. Speaking of mid laners.
Yeah, Voice of Light is going to come in here for Chovy. Can throw it down on a fly if he wants. He's already used the flash though, and he's just crushed by Tarzan. Chovy so happy to tank up this turret for so incredibly long, and Griffin take down the outer so easily.
Finally a top lane Sylas we like. Unfortunately, it's a mid laner. Moving to that area. The Rod of Ages build into almost a Spirit Visage makes the tanking with an Aatrox so easy, right? You can't kill two people.
Tanky,
both of them are so hard to kill. Gen.G need to hard engage as a unit. So in the side lanes, they had taken heavy losses in 1v2 and 1v3 scenarios. And that's around the champion that's supposed to be outnumbering the members of Griffin.
Precisely. Well, bottom side of the map, Sword is going to go back home. See what he can pick up here as Guardian Angel could be an option, but with the stopwatch unused just yet, I'd like to see something like a Duskblade. And no, he's going to go... We've seen this a whole lot more. A lot of Last Whispers being picked up as they've been buffed just a little bit with a little bit more damage options. As Chovy, it looks like he's going to go Rod of Ages into that full tank build.
Do you want to hear something really scary?
What's that?
I'll hold it till when we get the scoreboards up again. First, we'll talk about this, but I noticed something that made me very concerned. Turret dive, very easy with Aatrox and also the Sylas Aftershock. Sylas and a big health bar and Aatrox passive, but if you actually count CS, it's about 130 CS that Griffin that Gen.G have lost to the turret, that have lost to nothing. 130 creeps have died, unclaimed by Gen.G. That is an insane amount for 23 minutes in the game. And that shows the pressure of drafting losing lanes and a roamer that couldn't roam. They've literally lost out on 130 times at least, what, 18 to even more gold for each of these CS, right? A lot of this gold lead is purely CS that Gen.G have missed.
Yeah. And that gold lead is approaching 8,000 as well. I mean, what is it with Griffin games and looking up at the scoreboard and being like, oh, they're completely crushing their opponent here at 25 minutes in. It's just, it feels so suffocating, so oppressive, which is why we talk about 2015 SKT so often when we reference Griffin, because the last time that we felt this kind of craziness and this kind of guaranteed win. You know, you remember when you were watching SKT back in that time and they could be behind by 4,000 gold, but you never actually thought they'd lose the game. And it was almost always true. And Griffin's making us feel the same way as Chovy. Has to flash to get out of the way of Roach's ultimate, but now he's continuing this fight as Tarzan diving forward. Infernal Chains means that the ASOL is going to go down, and Chovy grabs that kill, and now life. Nice double knock-up, but has to flash to get himself out. There was no way Ruler was diving in with his ultimate on that one. He's got his new Infinity Edge, but no way to use it.
Aurelion Sol was supposed to be the ace in the hole, the ace up the sleeve, but it hasn't been that way this game. He's been so well held, even though it's the first game we're seeing of it from Gen.G. So well scouted by Griffin, and now, damned if you do, damned if you don't, they have a full engaged team, and they're getting split pushed, and they're losing Baron.
Yep, it's a 4v4 here around the Baron pit, and in the meantime, Sword's just on the bottom side of the map with a teleport available, knocking on the front door. Griffin not wanting to actually go for this one, but they're just keeping Gen.G busy. You feel like they may as well as life. Gonna get the headbutt back onto Tarzan, but Tarzan just straight up doesn't care. World Ender not available just yet, as Chovy does have that unbreakable will as Peanut dives into the back line. Can he actually get the work done as Viper is into his Zhonya's, but he's not gonna last for too much longer. Double kill now for the Yasuo as the knockup comes in. Chovy extraordinarily healthy as, oh my god, What is this damage potential? And he's not taking any of it. The Kingslayer gave him almost his whole health bar back as Sword just kills Fly underneath his own turret. It's one of those in the meantime stories, and Chovy ain't finished yet. He's going to get rid of the Urgot. It looked like it was the best possible scenario for Gen G. Ruler almost popping off, but he doesn't.
And we got to see the scientific experimentation. You asked, all right, what about stealing Alistar? Oh, what will it do?
Oh,
it
man.
didn't help him kill people, but it bought so much time where he couldn't die, and he was doing relevant damage. For Sword to split push, kill the Aurelion Soul a second time in the same passage of play, and get the inhibitor, it may not make him a murderer, but damned if it doesn't make him just the tankiest guy ever.
Yeah, exactly. And also, you get a bit of AD off that one, and when you've got a Sheen with you as well, I mean, you're going to be double dipping into that.
I don't think Griffin should be allowed to double dip. It should be single dip for Griffin. Everyone else can double dip.
Exactly. I mean, he didn't look
Sword
at the rules on
up
the packet of Doritos. I don't think Papa Smithy is. There's too much dipping. His Sword, yeah, that's a very, very dead dragon. We got excited when we saw it being picked up here from Fly. Certainly a famous pick for him, but hasn't looked great so far. Last Breath finally gets used here, but it just Griffin. They use aggro so incredibly well in these team fights that it just feels like there's no options for any team against this squad.
Especially because this was always going to be a true 4v4. Teleports up for Jace, but he ain't teleporting. He's always committing. We're getting a replay, though. Gen G is saying, let's just run it Baron. We got a team fight comp. This is the closest we're going to get to a team fight.
Oh, Chovy has a kick available. Look at them all lined up. Throws in the Q. Can he actually get this work done as Tarzan jumps on over? That's going to be the solo ultimate out from Ruler, but can they actually get it? Oh, Chovy with so much health back into the grinder now, as that's a three-man fear coming in for Roach, but they are looking to try and just disengage. 1-for-1, and good God, this Sylas tanked up the whole Gen G squad.
And Griffin staying around the Baron. The Sylas bought a lot of time, but that was a great move by Gen G. You remember last week, we were watching games where we said, the team's only win condition is to try to roll at a Baron. They got a kill and backed away. Today, Gen G say, we got a team fight comp and we lost our bot lane inhibitor, the one furthest away from the Baron. We're never going to get a 5v5 fight. We have to suicide Baron and take the turn fight even with lower health bars, because we're never going to get anything else resembling a 5v5 team fight, and our comp doesn't do anything else. They end up with a 1-for-1, and while that isn't a game winner, because they're already so far behind in gold, that is still the best macro play they could make at 28 minutes into the game. So credit to them. They made a lot of mistakes in this game and this season, but this was the best they could hope for.
Yeah, I completely agree. As look at this. Look at Chovy just tanking this for so incredibly long. Gets the kick onto Roach to bring him out of there, and I don't know whether he's almost able to get another ultimate here towards the end, but gets put in the grinder. And that was actually a 4-man.
Think about the same fight with one more item on all the carries on the side of Gen G, and you say, huh?
If that Sterix was in there for Ruler, if a GA was on top of that, if this Yasuo was popping off a little bit further, yeah, you're exactly right. It's a very different story. However, it feels like all the stories in a Griffin game are written by Griffin.
Just remember, if the game becomes about 5v5s, which I already said that Gen G are all about, super knockups and a Yasuo, you've got Tank Sylas. We know he does a lot of tanking. He doesn't do a lot of killing. We have Viper, who has been pretty well shut down. Of course, gap close onto him, and CC makes Cassio's job as a mid-range kind of machine gun mage unreliable. Jace, Aatrox team fighting, you know, like, okay. There is still team fights in the ultra late game that Gen G can win, and this is after Griffin had a massive start to the game. There is 3 items on the Yasuo. I think Griffin need to get this game done in the next commitment, the next 5v5, the next 4v4. Otherwise, the ELO heaven is still there for Gen G in spite of a rough start.
Oh, you're talking about the next 5v5. Griffin are putting themselves in position to try and get there, as Infernal Chain not going to find Ruler. And Shock Blast, these need to land from Sword to soften up the members of Gen G before these fights. Chovy clears out the minion wave though, and Griffin move back towards the Baron, and Gen G need to be careful. Minute and a half on the Infernal Drake. You can imagine that Griffin will move over to try and take that one down. As Tarzan, another Infernal Chain lands, as it's another ultimate from the Alistar picked up here from Chovy, and he's going for the initiation. Wants to find some extra knockups now, as Life's going to get the headbutt back in. But Chovy has the Unbreakable Will, and it's both of the Unbreakable Wills just trying to tank up, and Chovy's is so much better. Miasma is flashed into, and now Ruler's trying to kite this one back, but it's just not going to work. The Aurelion Soul once again going to go down second. It's a triple kill coming in for Sword, as Chovy's found Peanut once more. Flashes over, but Blast Cone is going to keep the Lee Sin alive. Shock Blast, Sword's hunting for it. Can he find it? They're
gonna
going to
look
be able
for the
to
win
get,
anyway,
yeah, they're going
Atlas.
to jump in through the bottom side of the map, and it looks like Super Creeps, as they prepared earlier, will be able to finish this game.
That'll be the game ender. In the replay, you'll see that there was actually a big disagreement, a mistake from Gen G in that fight that cost them a lot. It's not going to matter. Griffin win when they need to. They needed to win before the Yasuo was truly online. Turns out they get there, but perhaps only just.
Yeah, but I just loved how they adjusted their play, not to the composition they're against, but to the team that they're against. It was almost mindless aggression. It was almost like sandbox levels of early game power from this Griffin squad. Not something that they've demonstrated so far, but something that works very well against Gen G. A beautiful win here for this
And Chovy knows his role. He takes Alice to ult and says, I just gonna get in the backline and let's fight now, not later, now. And he can force that because he's in 4 people's face and doing some relevant CC and damage. When we get the replay, you'll note that in this team fight, Alistair flash pulls 4 people and Ruler doesn't take the ult because he's still trying to kill the Sylas in front of him. He does not commit when Alistair is hard committing, and that already is a problem. Life's life, awkward to say, is completely void because he's going in and he's not getting backup, and you can't make a split call when the game is going to be there for you later and is being forced to be played right now.
Yeah, exactly right. So was tanking, was doing a great job in the back line there, was Life, and you thought theoretically things could go well, but Sylas doing the same thing with a whole bunch more money and such a gigantic gold lead. I don't know whether this really changes our opinion on what Sylas is and what he does here in the meta so far. I feel like we need to see more wins from him and understand exactly what he's good at, but certainly looked better coming from the mid lane here in the LCK than it has on the top side of the map, even if Nogari's got a couple of wins.
And again, felt a lot like Swain to me.
Yeah.
But Swain mid lane matchups and kind of Tank Echo top lane matchups, if you think about it and take a step back, they're not that different, right?
No.
When you think of lane identity, Rod of Ages into off-tank, Spirit Visage, Iceborne Gauntlet, Zonias. That's what Faker was doing in solo queue. He dropped the Rod of Ages for competitive play.
Damn.
Looking over the numbers, and you get those base damage procs in enough, and apparently it adds up. Chovy able to win with any champion. Griffin goes 17-1. So that means if they were playing in the LCS, they'd be done. And 17-1's a pretty good scoreline.
And the other thing that's really difficult is it Sylas that's good or is it Chovy that's just too good? Oh, it's so hard to work out, man. I know that if we had LS here and we could let him chime in, he'd be like, no, Griffin are too good, Sylas is still a rubbish champion, but I don't know. I feel like it did work out very nicely, and I think that you've got to have a look at your opposition and then last pick the Sylas instead of what, SKT were doing with the Sylas where they were picking him very, very early in priority. So maybe that's going to be the option here for Sylas. If you see a whole lot of high-value ultimates, that's when you can pick him up.
And if you're feeling the turret diving with that aftershock, damn was he tanking, and damn was it effective.
Yeah, feels like the best one we've seen so far. It's our 3rd keystone for Sylas. Will we see another one? We'll have to wait until after the break for game number 2 between Gen G and Griffin, so don't go anywhere, guys.
20살, 그것은 치열한 전투. 우리를 억압하는 모든 것으로부터 우리 자신을 지켜낼 뜨거운 혈투. 그게 바로 20살 우리의 캐리, 우리의 버프. 우리은행이 내일보다 더 빛날 20살 우리의 오늘을 응원합니다.
This is for those who dare to stand up, for those who dare to make a difference. Get ready for battle and join the Republic of Gamers.
이 혹독한 훈련에서 살아남은 의자만이 CDG의 의자가 되니까. 때론 지나친 고집이 정말 좋은 것을 만드니까 의자가 인생을 바꾼다.
CDG.
Welcome back, guys, to LCK Spring 2019. We are at the final stages of the first round robin, and Griffin are on the cusp of making history. 18-1 is the dream. One more game, and they'll get there.
We got another man streaking, and that's Chovian, not on the way you're thinking first, Atlas. Come on, mind out the gutter.
MVP streaking is what he's doing. 5 in a row already, Jesus.
And 5 in a row was what, if you remember, Ning hit in the LPL before his first game. Tarzan hit 4. Ning hit 5. We haven't had a 6 in a row, and that would be a nice little moment there coming through from Chovy. Looking at the coaches here, I think Gen.G did a lot of things well, but also a lot of things poorly in that last series. The early game just was too much to bear, and yet there was still that moment where a perfect team fight, and perhaps they get back into it. Speaking of getting back into it, let's roll pick and ban and see how many adjustments can be made, because I'm looking at the must-ban list, and it kind of contains a lot of the names that we saw in game number 1.
And also now Griffin have so much more flexibility on their side of the bans as well, and we said that it was going to be a lot more difficult for them on the red side, and already it's the targeted bans coming through. The Gragas going to be taken away from Gen.G, and Life would have loved to have that in the last game as well, especially playing with the Yasuo in the lane. Yasuo Gragas does feel to be the best Yasuo lane that you can have bottom side.
But what ban can you drop as Gen.G? Because so far, Zoe Galio is rolled back. The Vladimir is an intriguing one to ban against, say, Dumb One Gaming. Against Griffin, you're like, oh, if we leave that one open, we're going to have a bad time. With the fact that it's a flex pick, wait and see if Gen.G make any changes. As Lucian first pick is what Griffin want to do. As Viper says, man, that last game sucked on Cassio. Yeah. I want to play an AD carry.
But Lucian is going to be banned away. Ezreal available here. And if Griffin don't pick it up, you can guarantee that Gen.G will be playing it. So that's going to be snapped up. And yes, the Yasuo. I think Yasuo is
definitely something you consider taking again. But Ruler also lost on a non-marksman. And I thought last team fight, he didn't necessarily play it optimally, so wait and see what the approach is here. Could also mean some more shenanigans going on with the Frostmancy bot lane from Viper, because it is that Ezreal who can uniquely use the stats well. Gen.G, how do they approach this draft? They're going to take away the Jace in the first round here. Potentially going to be a Roach pick, but we'll wait and see what they fully commit to.
Oh, no, don't do it. Don't run it back again. We saw this in the King's Zone versus SKT series. Every single game, Kai'Sa versus Ezreal. Every single game, 13-minute turret destruction. Oh no, well, we'll see whether Gen.G have some plans here. Of course, Ruler a very different beast when it comes to the Kai'Sa. Certainly one of our most storied Kai'Sa players here in the LCK, but not recently.
I have a bit more time for Kai'Sa than I did at the start of last week, purely because the builds are being explored a bit more reliably. We're seeing
the double
pickaxe BF, so we saw play the Ruin King double pickaxe from Viper. So there's different builds here to try to work out different situations, and asking AD carries, they're still kind of at a loss as to what the best way to go is. So there can definitely be an approach here to trim waves, but we'll zoom in on that later in game number 2. And for now, pick and ban, Urgot available, and with Sion taking some noticeable nerfs, it feels like just blind pick Urgot and be fine. For the top side is pretty much the reliable choice. See what Griffin wants to pair this with. Will there be a support first round for Griffin? Seems like the Alistar will be the choice.
All right, so Alistar locked in, meaning that Gen.G get a little bit blocked from picking the Yasuo if they would like it. However, it's not going to be going towards the bottom side. And our Life's champion pool pretty much smashed at this stage.
Kind of Braum or you're not feeling so good is kind of how you look at the remaining picks here. The Thresh also is a pick for other people, but we've seen Life not find value out of Thresh so far this season. He has been, I believe, his effective champion pool is 2 champions only. It's just the Gragas and the Braum, so...
Yeah, but Gen.G haven't been doing a whole lot of winning, so it doesn't tell you as much about them if you have a look at the win rates, things like that. So Gen.G certainly with some options now, as the Nocturne going to be the first ban here in the second round of bans for Gen.G. Tarzan not really caring too much about any hit to the jungle pool.
I think if you're Griffin, you ban Lissandra, and then give Gen.G a real pickle, because I think Peanut wants jungle counter pick.
Yep.
And right now, Fly hasn't been able to really justify final overall pick because his form has been so down. And outside of Lissandra and maybe Zoe, both of those are taken off. There's really not too much left on the board. So how Gen.G approach red side here is going to be really intriguing.
Wow,
and they see one siding of the Sylas, and they've had enough.
Yeah, well, Chovy was very, very good on that particular pickup. And maybe Gen.G want to pick up some pretty... high-powered ultimates as well. I mean, you like the idea of picking Sylas into a Lissandra, for example. Frozen Tomb, very strong. being utilized in the back line from the good old Silas. So Griffin, do they stick on the jungle hype train with their bans? I mean, Lee Sin could come in here if they want to make Peanut's life a little bit worse, but Lissandra going to be the ban here.
I think
showing their hand a little bit with the
given
last ban.
Gen G and Fly not showing enough, and the jungle counterpick potentially ruining some of the early tempo from Tarzan, I actually really like the Lissandra. It's the only pick you see Fly locking in at this point, but okay, well, this could play out reliably. Now, the reliability is down. The Xin Zhao's taken for power, but definitely has power down, and we could see a Jax response, we could see a Sejuani response and just try to be a tank jungler and disengage. A lot of different ways that Griffin can approach this. The Skarner has been played recently, and it's going to be played again, an old favorite of Tarzan's. If you remember, we coined the Griffin special as the famous Skarner ult into Thresh Lantern, and while they're star-crossed lovers in this game, Tarzan in Challengers was playing a whole lot of the Skarner way back in 2018 spring.
Yeah, and we actually saw it from Spirit last time out, but it wasn't exactly the greatest performance that we saw. Is okay, Chovy going to be back on the LeBlanc, but it's a blind pick, and what does Fly have to answer it?
Not Lissandra.
Damn right.
This is a really strong spot to take LeBlanc, because you think of Fly and you say, what is there that he can try to match this lane with? Sion, he's played and could try, but you're really gritting your teeth and bearing it. What is he feeling strong enough to play? Zed has been played by Nuke Duck. Aurelion Sol is a tricky lane, that's for sure, but he wants to bail out, get out as fast as possible, and push in LeBlanc, and you know what? Best of luck to him.
Yeah, I mean, if Chovy could do what he did the last game to the Aurelion Sol on a Silas, I think that things only get worse this time around, as we'll see whether these summoner spells are going to stay the same as well. I mean, taking the Ignite into the LeBlanc lane sounds pretty scary.
Let's adjust something. Remember, it was Aurelion Sol with losing side lanes. Now you've got winning side lane top, winning jungle matchup,
yeah, and
also your jungler isn't a level 6 jungler. The most famous Aurelion Sol I remember was RNG playing Aurelion Sol and Nidalee jungle when it was at its strongest point, and from level 2, level 3, you're pouncing, you're killing the side lanes, MLXG is popping off. You got the same sort of priority with Xin Zhao, and Aurelion Sol wants to push in LeBlanc early, or maybe just give up a minion wave and find advantages side lane. You cannot be cooped up mid lane like you were in game number 1. If you see Fly stuck under mid lane turret, it's just going to be a loss for Gen G.
Yeah, and also Chovy's probably going to go for solo kills a whole lot more often on the LeBlanc rather than on the Silas. So bailing out of the lane is a great way to not die. If you're not there, you can't die there. I mean, that makes a whole lot of sense to me. Tarzan will see whether he can actually power farm through his jungle in the earlier levels, because we know that Spirit had a terrible time on the Skarner in his last outing. But remember, this is Griffin, and now it's Viper on the Ezreal instead of on the Cassiopeia. No Yasuo's in sight, and it's Kai'Sa to try and contend with the powerhouse bottom lane.
Aurelion Sol and Xin Zhao, but more importantly, Fly and Peanut. The people, the duo that has underperformed so heavily since Kesper Cup. This is the magnifying glass completely on mid-jungle from Gen G.
Yeah, and we want to see the Peanut and Fly that were able to oust Sandbox so incredibly easily in the Kesper Cup. Let's hear from the fans, though, as we get into Game 2. Well, here we go, Griffin. 18-1 is the dream in the first round robin. They have to win this game in order to achieve it. Is a bit of a meme off at the moment, but Ruler might find himself in trouble. That's the flash from Chovy. They want to lock this one down, but it's not going to happen. And that's a very early flash.
I gotta say, our observer trolled us there. That was a really hard one to judge because of the full zoom, so shame on you, lead observer. I know your name. I do OQ with you sometimes. I'll be talking to you later.
Yeah, let's, we could shout him out and shame him on broadcast if we want to.
We will say the trade-up of flashes here is less impactful on Chovy outside of a cheese level 2 gank from Xin Zhao, because he will get, of course, an escape at level 2 and be fine with the distortion. He also skilled E level 1, which doesn't really help with the minion waves. This actually does Aurelion Sol a pretty big solid in the mid lane to get that Dark Seal first back and get Roman, and it's all going to be about the roaming from Fly. Otherwise, we like a lot of what Griffin has going on.
Yeah, exactly right. And with the Celestial expansion from Fly as well, I mean, he's got all the wave clear he wants in this early stage. So Chovy going to find himself shoved in for a long time, trying to deal with these minions that can be pesky with only a chain to help you farm things out. bottom side of the map, though, Viper and Lehens will have a huge advantage. With no flash on Ruler, will Tarzan be able to navigate this one? Has he been able to get himself in a position where he can get a singular Rift Scuttler? Because Peanut, if he beelines down there, possibly make that one happen.
See where his possible lanes to gank pre-6 are? I think Tarzan will probably want to impact the map earlier than level 6. I think top lane is an underrated gank spot for a Skarner because the flash flip into E hitting, you will get a chase kill on Jace. His base stats are very low, so I think there's actually kill pressure top side for Skarner Urgot.
Yep.
In a gank to there. Otherwise, of course, we know he's heavily outclassed by Xin Zhao, and especially Xin Zhao, Aurelion Sol. As a duo, pushing's happening in mid. Roaming has to start early, but at least for early game, the bot lane push is going to be for Griffin. They need this one, given the other lanes.
Yeah, and absolutely given the vertical jungling that's going to come in from the Skarner as well. Doesn't want to get 3-buffed, as it's a lot of damage actually being taken here by Fly, but he's offering a lot back this time. Will need to go Commoner Legend his way back from base pretty soon because he's running out of mana, but standing his own here in the mid lane against the LeBlanc.
Very, very standard Aurelion Sol gameplay. It's very, very non-interactive gameplay for Aurelion Sol in terms of laning phase. If you're trying him at home, I've seen him a couple of times in the LCK. It's a lot about using every inch of mana to get a great back timing and then getting an item lead, doing it again and again. Peanut's top side here, a turret dive with Aurelion Sol is a very straightforward one, but the moment that he dodges top lane, the core comes out and Urgot moves back.
Yeah, not going to be throwing any gigantic stuns into these guys with the Star Surge, so just going to back on out. Fly heads back in to try and clear things out of the mid lane. Farming very nicely here against the LeBlanc this time. Chovy missing a few CS early on means that Fly is going to be able to continue having a bit of an advantage here.
So the only other champion and pro play I've seen that has the same gameplay pattern as Aurelion Sol, the push back, buy an item, come back fast, is Rammus. Rammus top.
Oh, and Hecarim in the mid lane.
True.
Of old.
Rammus top was a thing in Korea for a bit. Mid lane.
Yeah, Chovy going to get ignited here as Peanut comes in. They don't know which one's quite the right one. Chovy's going to survive for the moment, but of course didn't have flash. Still doesn't. A return visit here from Peanut definitely available.
Didn't get cannon though. That was
oh, feels better.
Bit of a squeaky one there. I was watching it. I was like, oh, come on, but doesn't get the cannon to let it down a little bit. Getting things out of Chovy is good because there's no priority for Chovy in this lane after the level 1 flash. Bot lane.
Yeah, really nice hook there as Lehens tries to keep him honest. Life is going to get stunned up though from the passive there by Lehens, and that means that the trade is pretty nice for Griffin.
Still, this game state so far, we are seeing some pressure being put down by Gen.G, even in this duo lane that has been priority to Griffin. The hook comes in, some aggression is being shown. How much close tabs can be paid to Aurelion Sol? I guess the Spires will be interesting to track. That's a bit more information as well. May want to navigate around those on a roam timing. Boots 1 complete. We'll see if it does end up being just a rush on the Merc treads as you would expect. In the mid lane, Roach, with all that pressure that we saw earlier, is getting the push, but no turret plates just yet.
And also Sword's life is just going to be terrible because topside control is certainly there on the side of Gen.G, so that's exactly where Peanut is going to be hanging around. So Sword has to spend most of his time doing this, trying to get as much experience as he can and survive the lane to the best of his ability. And so far, 12 CS is not exactly a huge deal and a big problem for the Urgot, who's going to be able to pick up most of this wave as it comes towards him.
Peanut can live up to his old nickname, the Battle Ward, as we always used to call him back in 2016 on the Rocks Tigers. Then I agree that Sword really has nothing he can do, because if Roach has eyes on the enemy jungler, then he has no threat on him at all. He is in a wonderful spot to just put down turret plate after turret plate. Aurelion Sol just darts out of the lane towards the top side, and you're so afraid of a roam timing and also potential Xin Zhao gank, and turret plates should just roll in. That is the gameplay that you want to see. However, if Skarner is unsighted, we already mentioned there are some windows where an all-in onto the Jace can happen, so that's the last thing we want here, last piece of the puzzle to allow Roach to just keep opening up a CS lead after being on the receiving end of this gameplay in game number 1.
Well, now at least Griffin do have a little bit of respite here, especially on the top side as Tarzan only level 4, but thinking about going for a gank, a lane gank here against Roach. Not going to happen. Blast Cone available for Tarzan, but Roach getting his roam on. Control Ward does go down, as now Roach could be in trouble.
Oh, Lehens is here.
Yep, Lehens going to come up. There's going to be the Pulverize, and they really do need their Urgot to make his way down. But Tarzan already doing so much damage. Special delivery And Sword grabs the kill. Into the grinder goes the Jason. First blood to the Urgot is a disaster for Gen.G.
The minimap tells the story, Atlas. On the screen, you're like, okay, they're taking a while for this, but when Lehen shows up, it all clicks into life, and goodbye, Roach. A lot undone there. He doesn't flash, so he can return to the same gameplay, but a kill and extra items to Sword is music to the ears of Griffin fans.
Yeah, and look at this. Sword able to push this wave all the way up. One corrosive charge will clear out the full minion wave, and Roach without teleport can't offer anything back. And now Sword, with an experience advantage and the ignite in this lane, is going to be able to stand so much further up. Lehen's still getting his roam on here as he watches the Crimson Brambleback wander into the brush, knowing that Gen.G will be around.
Urgot's in base, of course, the block nowhere near. So good invade timing, and Gen.G need to keep this up. We already said. Mid-jungle, in this case, support jungle, you need to be on the aggression. Roach saw the control ward go down. He's like, it's just a Skarner, I should be fine. Aurelion Sol has pressure mid lane. That's why he doesn't react. But unfortunately for him, Lehens is ahead of the play here. And it's Lehen's excellent roam timing here that gift wraps first blood to Sword.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful stuff. Coming in from Griffin. We've come to expect it. 1,000 gold now the lead from this Griffin squad. And they just seem to have a plan of navigating what their comp's weaknesses are so nicely in the early stages of the game. They play around exactly where they need to in order to mitigate issues that they might have in the game. Gen.G unable to mirror it, and now an Impale is available. And when we saw Spirit playing the Skarner, I believe we saw one Impale actually utilized.
It was kind of an overkill kind of bot lane fiesta where that picked up a kill.
It was a 1-for-1 actually, it just didn't even work for the Skarner. It was bad news bears scenario, of course it was against Griffin. As Fly taking a lot of damage here, not going to have a lot of mana to offer anything back. I don't even think Voice of Light was available to be used because of the amount of mana that he had, but Chovy just going to put the screws in.
And what do you build? Do you build Catalyst Spectre's Cowl? Do you build slow... You want a Banshee Veil now, but of course it builds so awfully on the way with just a little Negatron Cloak.
Yeah.
A non-magic mantle, I should say, that you don't feel great about that. And those trades are rinse and repeat more and more often as level 11 and level 16 are crested. So you got to start roaming, and right now the roaming that we were calling for so heavily hasn't happened from Fly in spite of the flash lead at the start of the game. Watching Gen.G continue their aggression. Aurelion Sol ain't joining. Control Ward will spot him along the way. So it just feels a lot more toothless than perhaps it should at this juncture of the game.
Yeah. You can see Peanut now just going to transition. They want to try and get Chovy here as the chain lands onto Fly. Voice of Light, good combo. Nice stun comes out as well, but the Mimic Distortion still available. Chovy nowhere near has to use his flash.
It's just not a percentage play, right? He has flash up. He's close to his turret. No way a flash all-in from Xin Zhao is going to do a random 500 damage. So they get away from it. It looks a bit toothless, Atlas. I'm starting to get a bit concerned for the side of Gen.G, even if the draft had a pretty clear win condition. Roach continues to push, but already his aggressive streak has been dulled a bit. And
I mean, it's ridiculous. Look at where Sword's position is now. It's the opposite story, top side of the map, and that's one gank, one movement from Lehens, and they shore up a massive weakness in this competition.
It's one of those games where if you tell me that a team that has a top side of Aurelion Sol, Xin Zhao, Jace against Urgot, Skarner, LeBlanc loses Rift Herald, I can't imagine a game where Gen.G win, just because you have everything on the top side. You've literally got the biggest knives possible against butter knives, and yet the butter knives might get the major objective on the top side of the map.
Yep, exactly. I feel like it's even spoons. It's not even butter knives. Yeah, it's not even
I see you played Knifey Spoony before then.
Look, this is the way that you play Knifey Spoony, Papa Smithy, and unfortunately, if you're a Gen.G fan, it's not exactly the cheat sheet that you were looking for. That is going to be Shelly going down into this Rift Scuttler as well that Tarzan prepared earlier. All too easy. Clown Drake is what LS would call this one. As Peanut's going to get the consolation prize. But getting a consolation prize with this composition is just not good enough.
No. And like you say, it's not the consolation prize you're looking for. LS would call it a Clown Drake. And it helps Fly roam.
Yeah.
But again, I feel like we're saying roam a lot and not seeing roam.
No.
So it almost feels like it's not worth saying.
Well, I mean, we're saying roam a lot, and that's because Lehen's got a successful roam.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's got a lot further to go, this cow on walkabout.
I definitely had some choice words for him on his Alistair game I casted last, where he had some interesting headbutt pulverizers,
Yes.
but his map presence was great.
And he had one flash pole where he got aiming out of position that was absolutely beautiful.
And in this game, his roams have been just as good, maybe better, and he's got the mechanics on point. So
Yeah,
just
and he's
all
not
coming
into
together.
Yeah.
He's looking to steal away that 6 MVPs in a row streak that Chovy's looking for. Speaking of streaks, Tarzan rolls in, and he wants to use his ult.
Yep, and he's got a flash. He's going to be able to get the Chilling Smite, and once the flash is down, it's all too easy. The ultimate to start it up, Disdain to go into it. There's so much CC, and that gank is so incredibly strong. Urgot Skarner hadn't thought about it, but on paper it looks disgusting, and in practice, about the same.
And you watch the mini-map, I'm like, okay, how's Aurelion Sol going to react? He starts walking down, he doesn't really have the vision to make a play. There's no turret dive available, so he just kind of mills around mid lane and returns to it. Gen.G get a bit of chip damage on Lehens. Can they steal a Krug?
Hey,
Can they find anything?
They got a turret plate, Papa Smithy.
Yeah.
That's what they did. They got all of the turret plates top lane, though. They've got one in mid, one in bot lane. And Griffin, as far as global gold, are over 3,000 gold ahead, with only 2-0 in the scoreline, and they lost one of the dragons. So Griffin, once again, it's one of those early games where all of a sudden you look at the gold and it's a huge problem for Gen.G.
There's no outplay to Chilling Smite. Roach flashes after Chilling Smite. He kind of had to flash first, and he would have died anyway.
Yep.
Instead, goes into the death chamber. Second death of the game, this one, with a lot more assistance from Tarzan. All on the top side of the map. They got the top turret in the Jace lane. And when Jace is rotating around and taking down turret plates pre-14 minutes, he gets a huge gold lead, and he can be a big handful. When you take his turret first, he's usually the opposite of a handful.
Well,
he's,
there's
you know, kind of a free kill.
Exactly. And there's almost a Righteous Glory on top of Sword's Black Cleaver that he already has built up, and Roach only has the Black Cleaver and some free ass boots. I mean, it's not the brown bags that you're looking for. On the side of Roach, unfortunately, just Jace on Welfare feels like a very different story to almost any other champion on Welfare coming from the top side of the map in the current meta. I mean, if Sword was behind, at least he still have an AoE fear available and some tankiness, but Jace really not going to be offering too much as Sword standing underneath his own turret.
He just has no reason to go anywhere near where the brush camp is happening. But you're so afraid for Gen.G here. They don't have the light at the end of the tunnel that was the Yasuo teamfights in game number 1. They've got a roaming comp that's very strong early. They're behind early. If Griffin get control wards down, how do you ever walk up? Ever.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's insane pick power. Skarner is the epitome of a pick champion. Shout out to Captain Flowers, your favorite champion's probably going to win this game. And from there, Alistair LeBlanc, Urgot is single target deletion. LeBlanc's going to hit the side lane, and Aurelion Sol doesn't want to be clearing waves at his inner turret at 14 minutes.
With a 0-stack Rod of Ages that he just went and got from the shop.
Banshee Veil a long way away.
Yeah, it's not a very helpful situation as there's a headbutt pole of Lehens once again pays a visit, and he looks like he's certainly vying for that MVP spot, but Peanut does escape, taking the Lantern right out, and I thought that there was no way he was going to survive that one, as now Ruler, an opportunity to ult, but isn't going to dive into a full health Viper.
No summoners other than the heal from Ruler used there. It's top side.
Chovy does have the flash available, and the Q's not quite enough. So the turret shot is going to tag him. Thought he might have been able to flash that distortion over, but doesn't want to go too deep.
Turns out Old Ignite would have killed there, but maybe just no time to thread in that damage.
Yeah.
Not sure how Chovy got so low. I assume some turret shots were relevant in that one.
Sort of what happens, incidental damage against an Aurelion Sol as well, with those comets being pesky.
Viper in the mid lane. Ooh, 2-item Ezreal in the mid lane. Generic take notes on this one. He's going to push up. The side lanes are in a great spot. It's getting to be a long map with Skarner and control wards, and the pick power we alluded to will fully be realized before long. Fly pushes up the top side, and how can Gen.G burst back into relevance? Ruler, you always want to talk about Kai'Sa build. It's going to be following from Viper and going for Blade the Ruin King. He wants to throw in another couple of pickaxes to get to level 9 plus 85 AD from items, and thus the Q evolve overall.
Yeah, and I feel like this was the Kai'Sa build that Viper actually started here in the LCK.
That's Viper's. Teddy was the BF Soul double pickaxe.
Yes, and then there was another one that picked up the
Def
Blade
likes
of the
to
Ruin
go,
King as well.
And Def likes to go for the
Essence Reaver.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one.
Neither. That didn't seem to be.
You got to evolve
very
something
good at all.
early, please.
Yes.
Speaking of evolving, we're trying to evolve a fight here by Gen.G.
Yeah, and also evolve into a second Cloud Drake here as the teleport is going to come down from Sword. Finds his way in as, oh god, Peanut in a whole host of trouble. Can't take the Lantern, but he can take the Fear Beyond Death, and that's so many feared up. As Sword in the backline is going to do so much work, but Fly able to get a lot of work done, and the Ezreal to go down is a huge deal. Lehen's flashing forward, grabs the Thresh, but look at Ruler, he's still alive, and only really has Chovy to contend with. Griffin, they still want it though, the flash forward. Roach is going to be in trouble as Ruler is the one that they need to watch out for. Chovy flashes forward, not going to get too much more, but finally the Aurelion Soul goes down, and Roach cannot find another way into this fight. Lehen's is so far away from this team as the Empowered Shock Blast gets rid of Chovy's clone, who dives forward, finds that Q, and now Tarzan comes in. The Disdain comes down, and it's a double kill in the end for the LeBlanc.
League of Legends hard mode by Griffin. They were waiting on the Mimic cooldown for the second time in the team fight, because Viper going down took away a lot of their sustained damage. Chovy able to clean up. He has Mimic again. Hasn't used it just yet. Looking for one rotation. Look, he's 3 levels above the enemy jungler, 5 levels above the Thresh. Sword walks up. They take down the mid lane turret, but not the easiest cleanup for the side of Griffin.
Yeah, and 6,000 gold is now the lead for Griffin, but that fight felt like it was on a knife's edge. It just felt like Ruler didn't quite have the items available to get the fight going in Gen G's favor.
Because what happens here is the ultimate win for Griffin. They actually get Fear Beyond Death in the perfect spot as he's hooked into range of 3 people with the flash. Unfortunately, watch the bot side. Fly just assassinates Viper, and they have damage concerns. Chovy is here, and he's not level 16. He doesn't have almost no cooldown on the Mimic. So this had to be Griffin working in overdrive and calling the right targets, because damage-wise, they were second to what was left on Gen G.
Yeah, exactly, and they needed to make sure Ruler was zoned out of this whole fight. Otherwise, if he's free hitting, there is no chance for them. So look at Chovy playing further up, uses that flash aggressively, meaning that Ruler has to stay the hell out of the way, because the cooldowns just aren't long enough for you to play around that when it comes to the LeBlanc play. Chovy dives forward, and unfortunately, once again, a little bit late on the flash is Roach.
Does end up being the extended cleanup there, but it was made to work for their dinner that time is Griffin. Gold lead now, you already alluded to a couple of times, starting to balloon. Not quite 10,000, but over 6,500-ish.
Yeah.
It's a gold lead right now. Given that, the item timings are really rolling. High roll on the side of Griffin, and unfortunately, the moment you got 4 swords on Roach at 19 minutes, you know that right now things not coming together for Jace or Gen G.
Just the wrong swords, I think, Papa Smithy. I think that's what we're going to be talking about when it comes to the Jace. He's really anemic this game. 5 stacks only here for Fly as well, who's got a little bit of a revolver.
I wonder what he's building the revolver into.
Yeah, a dash cannon maybe for Fly.
It's not really an Aurelion Soul item.
Oh,
the
wait.
famous one with GLP for a double
Super Soaker.
So like a tanky build, I guess, on that one, but I guess doesn't give tank stats anymore. The change to it being one of the lost chapter items, so I guess that'll be his CDR item of choice. Seems like a bold stat against LeBlanc.
Yeah. Not exactly the greatest of choices, but we'll see whether Fly can make it work. Of course, he's very used to pressing the button because it was his favorite first item choice on the Aurelion Soul. In other outings, even if it has changed just a little bit now.
You just think of Aurelion Soul plus Catalyst into the GLP, but then that was not the build. It was changed to Rod of Ages when the GLP change came in the kind of 5 or 6 Aurelion Soul games we've seen in the past year or so.
Yep.
Since the mage item rework, which I guess was about 1 year ago now.
Yeah, approximately. Certainly wasn't recent, as Tarzan is going for a Shirelia's item number 2. I like that. He's going to be real fast.
An oldie but a goodie.
Yeah.
On the Skarner. It was actually nerfed because of Vladimir and Skarner, who loved access to that team-wide speed up. Gotta say, I'm looking forward to Turbo Urgot in a team fight with Righteous Glory and the Shirelias.
Yeah, I mean, if you think this is all about the Skarner, no, it's not. It's all about Sword getting on in there with the most movement speed possible to try and disdain someone back and get that big old fear.
Think of another game where Sion kind of laughs and just slows you down. There isn't really anyone who's not super afraid of Skarner and Urgot waddling in a very linear fashion in front of your face. The moment you see any sort of movement speed, let alone a Predator, you are pretty damn scared as all 5 members of Gen G.
And the thing you have to talk about that we haven't yet, and it's already been over 20 minutes into this game, is paying the Skarner tax. Ain't no one paid the Skarner tax just yet because Gen G haven't had enough money in order to do so, and that means Roach is just going to get impaled and destroyed. Doesn't actually have to because Fear Beyond Death is going to be enough, and oh man, when it's not even, Oh god, Viper's in trouble. Flashball, last auto's going to do it. Ezreal looking busted in the hands of Griffin as well.
Having your cake and eating it too, getting the free roach kill and getting that second kill on Ruler, who ends up just kind of being a voyeur, being front row seat for a nice turret dive and dying on the back end.
Front row seat for his own funeral, Papa Smithy.
Bit of bird watching there from Ruler. That means he goes down. Gen.G have lost this map completely. We already knew that would be bad. Maybe they'll get a kill here.
Nice hook in to come down there as Tarzan wants to get his flash in position. Not going to find it. Voice of Light does finish off the Skarner, as Griffin will ignore that fact and just move on to this inner turret. Feels like the Skarner's done his job by falling just there.
This should be the end of the record-breaking first round robin for Griffin. They're too far ahead. Now it's 10,000 gold at 22 minutes.
Hey, the GLP has been built up though now.
Oh yeah.
There we go. That's going to change your start.
Look, it might make a really hot day out in Sydney or Perth or Melbourne or wherever you are in Australia a little bit more bearable, but a Super Soaker ain't going to do nothing in this particular game.
And also, I mean, it's not a very warm spring yet, Papa Smithy, here in South Korea.
That's
so
why I'm talking about
wrong
Australia.
Exactly,
is,
exactly.
Yeah, not the time to unleash a water cannon. Watching the replay here, Roach has felt this a couple of times. Not really worth play-by-playing. He was going to die, but kind of wondering what Kai'Sa was up to. She takes too direct a path. You understand the first thought, but she's not running through a control ward, and then she's dead.
Yeah, very dead. Viper hitting absolutely every button very, very nicely here, as we're going to see in the picture some more things going down in favor of Griffin. Dragon goes down there, but this was where Tarzan makes this sacrifice, but Chovy just destroys the Aurelion Soul all too easily. 302 now, 850 gold is going to be that bounty, but Sword's got a bigger one, 950 on the Urgot. Just huge.
It'll be a 5-game winning streak for Griffin, and they would have traded those 5 wins for going to Worlds. Remember, King's Own Gate kept them from the World Championship in a 3-2 victory. 5 games afterwards, gotten them a Kesper Cup victory, and it looks increasingly like it will cement their perfect first round robin. Baron control being enacted, and remember, Griffin have the epitome of a pick comp and a 10,000 gold lead. The moment that control ward line extends to anywhere near Raptors or enemy red buff, good luck for Gen.G to try to check it.
Yep, and that Shurelius is done here from Tarzan, so he's got 2 buttons that make him go really, really fast. On the Skarner is Lehens.
Speaking
he's
of really fast.
Yeah, he's got movie boots. He's ready to get in there. Almost has his Righteous Glory as well as Lehens. Does have Flash, so Flash Headbutt Pulse certainly an option here on Ruler, but Supercharging is going to get him out of the way. There's the Turbo Skarner into the back line. Too many flashes coming in here as Impale is going to be used onto life. He's destroyed before he can do anything. Chains miss in the back line there from Chovy, but Ruler not going to be so lucky. It's another big one coming in from the Fear Beyond Death, and Peanut dies basically as an afterthought, and now Fly, Voice of Light just yelling to the heavens, to no one, and a triple kill as Sword is definitely stealing the MVP from Chovy for this game.
Chovy able to mimic Distort out of the Voice of Light, the ultimate end of this argument. Not much of an argument posed by the enemy team here. Only Roach is alive, and he's going to get some minions. Might even take an Ezreal ultimate on the back end. They're going to clean up Baron. They've just been too good for Gen.G on this day as they continue that march to the best ever round robin score of 18-1.
Well, 14-2 is going to be their scoreline in kills this game. It's over 10,000 gold the lead. It basically is that reality. 18-1, best performance in a round robin so far in the LCK.
Has there ever been a game where with a straight face you could make an argument, again this is an argument, that the least mobile champion on the side of Griffin is Ezreal? Everyone else is so damn
Oh my
fast.
god, yeah.
And there's a Mimic Distort for even better arcane shifts. So Ezreal for once is the slowpoke, the outplay on the back end by Viper, and the rest is
just beautiful
stuff. Beautiful, disgusting. That is the duality of Griffin. They've got their Barons, they're looking to get some more KDA.
And Papa Smithy, do you know what's a really frightening thing is that this is Sword playing the opposite side of the matchup from game number 1, and now he's legendary Urgot 8-0-3 against the 0-4-1 Jace. It's just Griffin with the demonstration of how to play out a game where you've got a Jace Urgot matchup there. Put the Urgot a little bit ahead, and he's actually able just to run over the top of the matchup.
And that's why when people are queuing up to kind of look at Sword as the weak point or the person to exploit, you note games like this, and it's against Gen.G. Again, they're not a huge contender team as things stand, but he's really good at taking a bad matchup, and in a good matchup, sometimes he can run away with it. And can you ask for too much more from your top laner? He gets outclassed in very fringe situations, and he's gotten better at surviving through bad matchups. He has pop-off games as well. A lot to like about all 5 members of Griffin. A lot to like about this game. We're just waiting to see which way they end game number 2.
Yep, and what the KDAs are going to look like towards the end as well as Chovy just explodes life. See you later, mate. It's just a very dead Thresh. Doesn't have a lot of counterplay options to that one, and now it's going to mean the inhibitor on the bottom side going to fall. Mid lane inhibitor turret also going to follow, but Griffin just going to follow minions towards this one. Look at all the cannons just lining up to get rid of these Nexus turrets. Griffin want to get the 18-1 split on the first round robin as Chovy wants to get rid of Fly. He's been annoying on this dragon as Tarzan turboing towards them. And within the timing of the Impale, the Xin Zhao is going to die. Fear Beyond Death finishes him up. And Sword needs so much respect given to him. Chovy darting forward, darting back. That's a big 2-man pulverize. His life is just dead as an afterthought. Once again, and Lehens has his ultimate to keep him alive through almost everything. Fly on his fountain is not going to survive as the Nexus, I felt like, fell in 1 or 2 hits.
We spent an entire round robin in 2019 being front row to the Griffin show. They have now won 9 best of 3s. In the LCK. They didn't do any losing in the Kesper Cup either. No one has defeated them in a series, and only Sandbox has taken a single game since the famous scrims that they were winning at the World Championship. They've cemented that whisper into shouting. Everyone is shouting about Team Griffin, and with good reason. No one has been able to run them close apart from Sandbox, and even then, for 2 out of 3 games, Griffin looked on another level. They'll go for a bow. They're still enjoying their time on the Rift, and every time you take to the Rift against them, you learn about a new combo. Suddenly, Urgot and Skarner is their new combo because those wombo combos of ultimates were a treat to watch.
Yeah, the Fear Beyond Scorpion seems to be the combo here for Griffin, but I feel like everyone starts to come up with ideas. They're like, oh, here's where we can attack Griffin. Swords where they're going to be weak. And then a performance like this comes out of the man and reminds you that Griffin can play around their top lane if they want to. They just don't have to. And oftentimes, Sword, like you say earlier, is left on an island. He has to just fend for himself, and it can be rough. This time around, he's given a little bit of attention and runs away with the whole game.
You can remember games where Sword is in A bad matchup, and B gets no jungle help and feeds. That's happened. He's lost in those occasions, but every top laner loses in games like that.
Yeah.
And there's some games where he gets those 2 things and doesn't feed. And there's many games where he gets a gank and is able to run away with the game, or has a good matchup and can do well in the good matchup. So it feels like there's that 1 out of 8 instances that makes sense, and you're like, okay, Sword looks mortal, but you know why you're doing that? Because you got to look somewhere, Atlas.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to sit there like I did watching SKT in summer 2015 and say, all right, let's put together that 9 minutes of tape across 18 best of 3s where this team looked mortal, and that one strategy they weren't ready for. It was globals for SKT, where they didn't really seem to deal with Shen so well in summer 2015. And I was like, what about globals by KT? It didn't work. Yep. And you say, what about camping Sword? Maybe 1 game somewhere, but a best of 5. It's not going to mean the reason between a victory and a loss, and that tells you that in 98 out of 100 circumstances, Griffin probably wins. And when it comes to the 18-0 best of 3 streak that other players, not Griffin players, but other players in our opening trash talk was saying it could happen, everyone kind of looks like that and they say, sure, but you'll trip up somewhere. And this is Griffin, who played double funnel Lucian and had some weird drafts where they kind of were architects of their own demise. Those drafts are a lot more intermittent. They have 1 or 2 games where I'm just scratching my head saying I don't really see it. Otherwise, the norm is pretty impressive stuff. And even when they don't put their best foot forward, no one has been better enough than them to actually seize the opportunity.
Yeah, and the thing is that Griffin not only know how to play their win conditions very, very well, but they also know how to deny their opponent's win conditions at the same time. And I feel like that's something that's been lacking so far in 2019 for a lot of our teams. Identifying how you're supposed to win a game whilst also playing around how your opponent wants to win as well. So Griffin, this is the example of exactly that. Genji want to play around Roach, splitting in a side lane? Well, you just kill him. And he gives Sword the kill so that he can run away with the top lane matchup in counter to them.
That was probably the coolest part of the game, was Lehens being ahead of the play and making a kind of flash burn into an actual kill on the top side. And then moments like this where actually Fly salvages the best moment for the Aurelion Soul because he assassinates Viper and ends up actually being way harder for Griffin to clean up this team fight. They still do it overall. By the end of it, Gotta say, Fly could have been almost any other champion than Aurelion Sol, and we would have said the same thing about BDD's victory on Aurelion Sol in his first game playing on it. This could have been Orianna, because he was under the turret for the whole game and could never do any roaming. So I liked the lock-in because it threatened something, but unfortunately the reality was 2019. The reality was a player and a team out of form, and I believe that cements Gen.G as 2-7 in the first round robin of LCK Spring. Quite a few passengers joining them down there. Not a lot of wins to speak of between those orgs.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and it is 2-7 to come in. Only a couple of victories against KT and Jinair, I believe. For Gen.G, not the start to the season that you'd want, but still early days, still only the first round robin has been completed here in spring as Viper.
That was a mistake from Ruler.
Yeah, it was.
Don't see too many of those. He's not bloodless in the 2-7, but you know.
But you can see frustration here in this game from Ruler that I think is the main takeaway for me is Ruler can be a very composed and intelligent player, but sometimes he does tilt, and it's just a really sad situation to see.
Well, think about Gen.G games of last year, even when they were kind of indifferent form. Right? They weren't in free fall, but they were indifferent for a lot of regular season. It was a lot of nothing happening and Ruler farming.
Yeah.
It's so different when your top lane's died 3 times in a good matchup and your bot lane being like, well, we didn't get a lot of ganks and our top lane isn't going to have any priority, and okay, I made one mistake and died as well. And you know, it's a lot of bad feels, and you have to know that Gen.G are feeling those bad feels. They've got so many players here who've won the LCK or world champions and all those sort of things, and they got so little to show for it. Like
they had a Xin Zhao that did half the damage of a Skarner, Papa Smithy. And
the scary thing is, they had a roster they felt good about.
The boy.
Kesper Cup has worked so much against Gen.G because they were like, well, we were the second best team. And then now, they're so far beyond the pace, they've made no roster changes, and where is the light at the end of the tunnel for Gen.G? It's going to have to be through their play as the MVP streak does finally end on the side of Griffin.
Yep, it ends for Chovy, but Sword's going to be able to pick up his second, and well-deserved here in this game. It was the Sword show, proving that the Urgot is still indeed extremely powerful and in the right hands can take over a game almost by himself. I mean, Chovy still had an impressive game, but I mean, he misses a chain over there. He dodges the Voice of Light up here, but you can see in the front line, Sword's just purging down everyone, and it's lights out for Gen.G towards the end. The way they played it out, though, in the earlier stages of the game, with Tarzan setting up for that kill, with Lehens roaming in at exactly the right time, Griffin just have so many of these plans that start off the game on the right foot for them, and then they close them out.
And it's just better than expected. And it's already the best team we have, one of the best teams in the world, and yet you watch the play and you're watching the Alistar, like, how does this work? And like, oh, I see. It's even better when you watch it happen in front of you.
Well, now we get 2 people in the interview as well, so let's throw it over to G-Sun to talk with Chovy and Sword. And CD.
네, 심해 감독님은 이번 LCK 스프링 이 자리에 처음 서시는데요. 팬분들께 한 말씀 부탁드립니다.
여기 서니까 좋네요.
It's good to be here.
오늘 전승으로 가져가면서 감격스러우실 것 같아요.
So, Griffin finished first round undefeated. How do you feel about that?
오늘 승리 이제 저희가 연습 그 짜운대로 돼서
Well, about today's victory, I think the game went as we did in the practice games. So I was feeling really comfortable and it was really nice. Chovy, you played Sylas, stealing all the ultimates and showing great performance. How was today's game and how did you prepare Sylas? Well, Sylas, when the opponent composition has great ultimates, and also in a situation where you don't lose in the laning phase, I'm able to go with Sylas. Then is it a good champion against Aurelion Sol? Well, I actually faced him for like 4 months, so I had no experience about it, but I just went with Sylas. So CV Max, how was Chovy's Sylas today? Well, Sylas, Chovy practiced it for quite a lot of games. So if it's not a blind pick, he was quite confident. So today was the right timing for it. And Chovy told me that he's feeling a bit confident, so I allowed him to play, and he did perform well in game. So let's check out this highlight here. You stole Alistar's ultimate here, and you also put team fight. So I saw his ultimate from live. It's a really good ult still. And I just went all in because I knew that I won't die there, so I just kept going in. Then was that you that made the call to open team fight, or so what was going on over there? So at first I stole the ultimate and then I opened team fight. Then moving on to game 2, Sword. It was an amazing game. 9 kills and 4 assists. How was your play on Urgot today? I want to give all the credit to our junglers and also the bot laner because Tarzan was paying attention to the top lane a lot. So our bot laners were doing so well down there even without junglers. So I think I just did the play that naturally a person has to do in the solo lane when jungler sees you a lot. Game 2 and game 1 was also Jace versus Urgot, but you were always in a priority in both champions. Well, actually, it's a matter of ganks and not dying in the lane. I think maybe Urgot is a little bit in a lead, but overall, I think I avoided ganks a lot and I did quite well.
네, 맞습니다. 소수 선수의 경기력이 빛났던 특히 2세트였습니다. 감독님 2세트에서
CB Max.
스카노가 나왔단 말이에요.
Skarner
어떤
popped up.
계기로 준비하신 픽인가요?
이것도 타장 선수가
So this is also a Tarzan
저번에 한번 적으로 상대했잖아요.
practice. I mean,
그 이후로 되게 좋아 보인다.
he faced
네, 그래서
Skarner in the previous game
연습해봐야겠다
from an
하고
opponent team, so he thought he was quite viable, so he practiced it, and today was the right situation, and we played it today.
그리핀은 언제나 좋은 모습 보여주니까요. 오늘 특히 또 1세트, 2세트 포탑
Game
하나도
1 and
내주지
2.
않았습니다. 그 어느
None of your
때보다
turrets were
더
going
빨리
down,
끝나가는 느낌이 드는데요.
and game was quite,
오늘만큼은
and
정말 승리에
game
대한
was
열망이 더 강하게
really quick in time.
느껴지셨던 건가요?
Does that kind of reflect the will to just end the first round in a perfect score?
KDA나 뭐 연승을 몇 연승하고 있거나 이런 외부적
To be honest,
요소를 별로 그렇게 진짜
we're not really interested or paying attention to the factors outside the game like KDAs or the winning streaks.
해서 이기자.
The only mindset in mind today was let's just win against Genji and do the best performance we can.
네, 그리핀은 그 어떤 경기 기록보다는
Griffin.
한 경기 한 경기 승리에 더
I guess you guys are focusing one game at a time.
초비 선수 이런
The
얘기가
Chovy.
좀 많아요.
There are a lot of
점점
comments
포스트들이
that
늘고 있다.
saying that you are getting good at
혹시
interviews.
코치를 많이 해주시나요?
Does CV Max give you any advice?
일단 저 인터뷰한 거는 뭐
Well, my
코칭
interviews,
같은 건 일단 아무도
no
안
one
해주는
coaches me.
편이고요.
Not really.
많이 하다 보니까 늘어난 거
I think I'm just
네, 이제는
getting good at it
카메라가
by
어색하지
having a lot of
않으시죠?
experience.
아직
Do you feel
완전
comfortable in front of the camera?
어색하지 않다고 할 수 없는 것 같아요.
Not
네,
100%,
알겠습니다.
not yet.
앞으로 조금 더 편해지시길 바랄게요. 자, 감독님 이제
CB
2라운드
Max.
남았습니다. 어떻게 준비하실
We're gonna be
건가요?
starting a second round robin soon. How are we gonna
네.
prepare for it?
저희가 작년에는
Last year,
1라운드 성적 2라운드를 잘
We were a bit shaky in the second round, so
토대로 경험 삼아서
based on that experience, we're gonna concentrate harder and we're gonna make sure to be consistent in the second round robin. And lastly,
되게 좀 다 결합돼 있어요. 사실
I think
하나가
we are so solid as a unit right now, all the 5 players.
중요한 말이고
I mean, that's the most important thing as
누가
a
받아도 이상하지 않다.
team, so I think every player deserves MVP.
받은 사람이 나간 총알인 거죠.
It's I want to call it the MVP players as a bullets, but you know, you need a whole gun to be a gun, you know? So I just want to say
MVP를 받지 못하고 뒤에 있는
all the 4 members or 3 members behind the scene, you know, not being the MVP. I just want the fans to also give some attention and love and support for the other players as well. The Sword. Then do you have any message for the 3 players waiting for you guys? Even though I'm a top laner, don't feel bad about me picking the MVP, and I know that you guys are being so well and doing so well, so I'm having trust on you. Just keep your play going.
마지막으로 초비 선수에게 여쭐게요.
So lastly, Chovy,
2라운드 어떻게 대비하실 건가요?
how are you gonna prepare second round?
라운드는 지금까지 해왔던 대로
Just as we did.
경기력이 끌어올리는 게 최우선이고.
Well, first of all, we have to just make sure to play up to our full potential, and we're gonna prepare one game at a time to win every match.
그리고 경기력
So
기대하도록
we'll be looking
하겠습니다.
forward to see
팬분들 오늘 이
even better
자리에
performance
계셔서
and
정말
teamwork
행복하실
from
것
Griffin.
같다는 생각이 듭니다. 오늘 인터뷰
So this will be the end
감사드립니다.
of the interview with Chovy, Sword, and CB Max from Griffin, and I'm gonna pass it back to our casters. Thank you.
감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Ji-sun. Fantastic to hear from all three. Wasn't expecting CV Max to be up there, but we got graced with his presence, the mastermind behind Griffin himself.
Well, it's the end of the first round, Robin, so we get the coach interview out there. Hopefully that will be a crowd. I'd like to talk to some more of our coaches because there's so much to ask with topsy-turvy, first round robin for most. Will we have Griffin and the reverse Griffin as Jin Air, unfortunately, have that mirror stat line going on, but in the loss column, Gen.G continue to cement themselves in the relegation spots. KT and Afrika Freaks want to find a way to separate themselves and move to 3-match victories.
Yep, not going to be as difficult for KT and the Afrika Freaks, though, because their last match is not going to be against Griffin. However, still going to be a bit of a worry because SKT is no mean feat either, and that's exactly what KT have to face off against after about an hour's break. Moving towards our next series, Griffin seems to create a large void in the LCK.
But will that void be filled with a competitive telecom war? A lot of people will say KT come in with no hope, kind of like SKT's woes last year with a Shubdi on the other foot. Will we see something happen, and will KT find a way to get some relevance? Because they need to fight back Atlas, and it needs to be a spirited fight.
Exactly right, and we'll have to see exactly who they're going to be fielding for that one as well. So guys, make sure you take your votes, but that's going to be it for the first series. About an hour, and we'll be back for the telecom war.
You take me higher when I feel low. Make my world brighter when I'm alone. I keep on rolling, all with your fuel. You're like my gasoline that makes my dream come true. 'Cause this is it,